Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to T3PO Live. I am your host, VashSky. Thank you so much for coming on in. We have a lively chat already over here. Hopefully you got all that you possibly could from our earlier shows in the network, Pro Show. I'm sure Mr. H is doing something or another. Culture Casino, that park place, Morning Magic, and everything like that. Thank you so much for coming to our show right here. We have an amazing panel lined up for you. Let's go ahead and get them on the screen right now. Let's see here. We have Lou, Washington's Ghost, Barry Plays 28, Erica from Erica and Raph, and Ron from Follow the Bradley's Fun. Guys, welcome to the show.
Wow.
Welcome.
We're getting the band back together.
Yes, we absolutely are.
Awesome.
And
excellent.
we also have somebody else in the background right there. I don't know if they want to be on yet. Let's see if they do. Joshua, you there?
Yeah.
Hey, Joshua.
Hey, Joshua.
Hello, guys and girl. How are you doing?
Hello. Good.
Doing pretty
Good to
good.
see
Doing
you
pretty
again.
good.
Did you just assume my gender?
Well, the long hair. Yeah.
Certainly hope you did.
For everybody watching,
Ron, if I assumed wrong, you are the worst trans I've ever seen.
Oh, I've seen worse at the parks.
Yeah, well,
wow, we're already
I meant without blue eyeshadow. Anyway,
yeah.
we're already off the rails. It's so funny. Make Walt great again. That's make Disney Walt again. That's what it is. Make Disney
Walt again.
That's the one right there. Love the hat there, Ron. Very much appreciate it. Gotta get one for the parks. That would be really funny to wear and get all the awkward looks.
I should note, while you're reading it that way, technically it doesn't actually say that, so there's no infringement.
yeah, what is this? Dizoe?
Yeah, there's like a little, like a, what is that? Like a diamond in there, a diamond instead of the N.
Should have been a mouse. Anyway, hidden Mickey.
Yeah,
I
three
gotta
circles, right?
I gotta be careful with that kind of stuff, So, but this one's safe. I know this one's safe because the company that did this actually made me change it to this, and then they approved this, and now I'm like, okay, cool. I guess we're good to go. Boom.
Well, if anybody hassled you at the parks, you could say, "Oh, I'm celebrating the new animatronic coming to the Opera House at Disneyland."
Exactly. Yes.
I see, there you go.
It's easy
That's
to do.
very true. Very
Plus, I
true.
think
And
this will get that second look. Is that a MAGA hat? Oh no, it's not a MAGA hat.
see, that's what I was referring to because especially out in California, you definitely have plenty of people out in California who might not be of that persuasion right there. But speaking of California, speaking of Disneyland, speaking of all this stuff going on there, Bob, we got to talk about your day from hell when it came to bringing your family to Disneyland. Please enlighten us. What happened?
Yeah. And first of all, before I get started, I've got a hoarse voice because I just got over a cold. So please bear with me if my voice starts cracking. My apologies. Also, I just want to say thank you for VashSky. He joined us last night on my podcast in the park. And in the chat, we have Aldo's journal. He was actually there with us last night. So Aldo, it was great meeting you. Thank you for coming by. And, thanks for hanging out with us there at Disneyland. Appreciate it.
I agree.
So,
and my voice, which is sounding strange these days, I had an Uber driver tell me I sounded like Casey Kasem the other day.
but see, I think that's a compliment.
I suppose so. I just didn't want her to ask me to do the top 20 or whatever it was.
So does that mean that
That's
you
the
can
rest
also
of the
do
story.
Shaggy's voice? Can you do Shaggy's voice as well? Because that would be
Yeah,
like totally cool, man. Oh.
I get ruh-roh. That one I can do.
And Robin from the Batman and Robin cartoons back in the 70s.
Oh, that's right.
That's true. Man, I forgot about this. Bob.
Well, Batman, all I can tell you is the top 40.
Yeah.
So my wife and my daughter and I went to Disneyland a couple weekends ago, and my wife hasn't been to Disneyland in a while, and so she was looking forward to going because we decided we weren't going to renew my daughter's pass, like I think I said on the show before, and so it was last time for us to have a little hoorah together, because it'll be a while before I get another ticket to take my wife and my daughter back to the park. So we were excited. We got there around 10 a.m. and we planned on staying as possibly till closing, which we almost did. And most of the time when I go to the park, I have great experiences. I carry actually stickers that say cast member extraordinaire because I'm a former cast member. And I like it when, people recognize me as a cast member, and people like it when I recognize them as well. So I know you can do the cast compliment in the app, and we tell our viewers to do that too when I'm out in the park. But, this was one of those days where I thought this is going to be a great day and I can't wait. And we did have a good family day, but we had some really unfortunate customer service issues. In fact, 7 to be exact, which was kind of 7. And the first thing that happened was we went to Tiana's Bayou Adventure. We had a virtual queue for it, and we waited an hour and 43 minutes in line, which we had not expected. And so we got up to the front, and of course, we don't want to ride in the front, especially because people were getting really, really soaked and wet. So we asked for the back, and the thing was, customer says, "Oh, we're not taking requests right now." And I'm like, "But you just requesting the people in front of us, and they asked for the back." Well, we're not doing that right now. Okay, that's weird. Well, the people behind us had 2 people, and they're like, "We'll sit in the front. We'll do 1 and 2, and they can have 3, 4, and 5 in the log." Because the one at Disneyland is single file, not side by side. So we're like, perfect. And the cast members, no, we're not doing that. I'm like, all right, whatever. So she was kind of, just being very, pity about the whole thing. But after that, we decided, well, we're hungry. We actually were about 2 hours late running for lunch. So we headed over to the Red Rose Tavern. We get in there. And I had a couple of people in front of me and one person behind me. And when I finally got my turn to come up to the cast member to order, I decided I wanted to get the chicken cordon bleu sandwich. I'm not a big spicy Dijon mustard fan. So I asked him if they could take it off. And he's like, "No, we're not doing that right now." I'm like, "Wow, that sounds familiar." I said, "Why not?" And he said, "Well, we were so slammed earlier, we're not taking any requests." And I turn around and I go, "There's one person behind me. Oh, they're going to another register. There's no one in line right now. So why can't you take that request?" Oh, there's my cat back there. So they said, "Well, we're just not doing it." And I'm like, okay, that's weird. And he goes, don't worry. They just put like a little dollop of, sauce on there. I'm like, okay, that's fine. So then I ordered my wife and my daughter's burgers. They wanted the tavern burger. And my daughter says, hey, I don't want any sauce on mine. And I was like, oh, let me see if I can get this guy to take the sauce off. So I asked him to take the sauce off, and he said, nope, I'm not taking requests. And so another cast member walking by heard him say this. And she walks up to him and says, what are you doing? And he's like, what? She goes, you don't know if she has any allergies. You don't know if there's any problems. There's a reason why, he's asking not to get that on his daughter's burger. So do him a favor, take it off and don't put it on there. And he's like, oh, okay. So he turns to me and goes, okay, we can take it off. I go, great. All right, perfect. Can you take the sauce off my other sandwich? He goes, nope. I'm like, whatever.
Oh, jeez.
I thought that was really funny. Usually they're really accommodating because
what I would have said? I would have said, by the way, I don't subscribe to Disney Plus, so if I die, you're going to get sued personally as well as the park.
Right.
That's
I would
kind
have
of
loved to look on his face if he said that.
yeah, that would have been funny. But I was shocked because I was like, wow, I didn't expect it. I thought he would say, oh, well, I can do it for your daughter. I'll do it for you as well. But no, he didn't do that. So I was like, whatever, we had a couple bad experiences. So then we went and watched the parade. And afterwards we decided to go onto the train, to take the train around the park, because, it just opened up and my wife hasn't been on in a while. Well, they were getting ready for the candlelight processional. So everything's set up on the stage on front of the train station.
Right.
But unfortunately, you had to go through the exit and the line was going all the way down Main Street. So we get up there and they load up the train, and not a lot of people got off, but there were still some areas where cast members could have put some people on the ride. And there was just 2 people in front of us and 3 in my family. And the cast member says, oh, no, we're not going to load up those areas. I'm like, there's plenty of areas where people can still go sit. You can let some more people on the ride. And she said, no, we're not going to do that. And I'm like, oh, geez. So there's another one. We're not doing that. So then after that, we went over to the monorail, and my wife wanted to ride in the front with my daughter. And I said, that's great. Let's go ahead and do that. So we get to the monorail. Monorail Blue already had people waiting for the front cabin. So we said, we'll wait for Monorail Orange. And as we were waiting for Monorail Orange, they started to when Monorail Orange pulled up, they let people come in, and they always load the back to the front first. So this lady comes running up to the front, and she starts hitting the buttons to try to get into the cabin, because what they do is when they actually come out of the cabin, they lock it so no one can get into it, because operations is there. So I said, oh, you can't do that. She goes, excuse me? And I'm like, yeah, you can't do that. Just wait. The cast member will let us in, and we'll be able to ride in the front. So she says, oh, okay. Her husband comes up and it's like, I don't want to wait in the front. And I'm like, yeah, wait for it. We can all fit in here. It'll be great. But in the meantime, Monorail Blue has come back, and it's going to be, coming back to the station soon. And Monorail Orange is not left, and they haven't let us in yet, but everyone else is boarded. And there's 3 cast members having a very intense conversation over by the operations area. So I was like, well, what the heck is going on over here? This is kind of weird, So one of the cast members comes over and points at my wife and says, did you touch the buttons? My wife says, no, I didn't touch the buttons. She looked at me and says, did you touch the buttons, sir? And I'm like, no, I didn't touch the buttons. She asked the lady who touched the buttons, and she goes, oh, no, I didn't touch them either. Now, I do need to tell you, the lady who did this, her and her husband were from Italy, very strong accent, but they spoke pretty good English. And then she realized what the cast member was asking her, and she goes, oh, yeah, that was me. I didn't mean to do that. I was just trying to get in. She says, that's it. You're not riding this ride. And we were like, what? You're not right? Why aren't they riding this ride? They touched the buttons, locked up the ride. They need to go wait behind the gate. I go, why do they need to wait behind the gate? Well, because they touched the buttons. And the guy's wife says, let me get this right. This is a punishment. You're punishing us because my wife touched the buttons. And she's like, sir, you and your wife need to go there behind the gate and wait. If you're lucky, you'll get the next monorail, and maybe you can ride the front. Whoa. And he was just like, oh, jeez. And I told the cast member, I said, listen, you don't have to do that. She didn't know. She's from Italy. She didn't know that, she's not supposed to hit the buttons. And there's no reason why she can't sit in the front with her husband, with my family. It'd be great. I'd love to have them with me. Nope, not doing that. Well, there goes customer service, story number 3 there, or 4.
Jeez.
Sorry. So then we head over to DCA, and we go to Guardians of the Galaxy. And when we get to Guardians of the Galaxy, they inform us that one of the elevators is broken down and they're not using it, so it's going to be a longer wait time. Well, when we finally get up to the cast member, tell them how many people we have, the ride sounds like it's coming back on for the elevator broke down. So the cast member runs down there and finds out it's open. She comes down, she goes, "It's open, so come on, follow me." So she tells the two people in front of me, my wife, my daughter, to follow her, as well as me and my family. And so those two people start going, and then me, my wife, and my daughter start going. Another cast member walks up and goes, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Oh, we're following the cast member down there because she told us to follow her." "You're not going anywhere. Stay right there." I was like, she told us to follow her.
Man.
Problem. And she's like, "Don't go anywhere." So the cast member who told us to follow her comes running down and says, "Hey, I told them to follow us. Come on." She goes, "Okay, now you can go." And I go, "Oh, now we can go." I said, "I told you that." She ignored me, turned around and walked to the other direction. And I was like, what is going on? My wife's like, we keep having all these customer service issues. Why is this happening? Service with a snarl. I love that, Ken. So then after that, we went to Cars, Radiation Springs Racers. And this was the worst experience that we had all day, which is unfortunate. And I actually paid to get the multi-pass lightning lanes because my wife does not like to wait in line for the rides. So we're using that throughout the day. And just to be on the safe side so that we could get on the ride real quick, I paid for the single rider, or not the single rider, but the single pass for the lightning lane so that we get on the ride right away. So we get in line, we get up to the cast member. He says, "How many people in your party?" I said, 3. He goes, "Go to row 6. So we go to row 6. Our car comes up. We get in. We buckle in. The same cast member comes running up to us by this time. And it's been a few minutes since he told us to go that line. And he points at my wife and he yells at her and says, "You were in single rider. What are you doing?" And she's like, "I wasn't a single rider." And he looks at me and goes, "You were in single rider." And then he turns to the cast member across the way and says, "Don't let them go." And I was like,
Oh, God.
what is going on? I said, "I told you we had 3 people and you told us row 6. He goes, "I told you that?" I said, "Yes." And he goes, He gets all upset. He starts talking to people in line. Apparently what happened was he had moved from the regular line to the single rider line, and he was telling single riders where to go. And apparently he miscounted. Too many people were in line. He thought maybe one of us, went in when we weren't supposed to. Long story short, he never apologized, and he went back to what he was doing. And my wife looked at me and she goes, "I cannot believe that you stream at the parks here for Disney. You support this company, and we've gotten the worst customer service, and I haven't been here in a while. What the hell?" And I was like, "Sorry, honey." I said, "Normally it's not like this. Every once in a while you encounter, a bad experience, but most of the time I have a really good experience here." And she's like, "Yeah, right." And I'm like, "No, I'm serious." So the last thing was we went back to Disneyland and she wanted some dessert. So I went to Jolly Holly,
The bakery.
Holiday Bakery. Yep. And we get there and they have some really good food there. If you've never been there before.
Oh, yeah. Very good.
Items.
Tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches, as I
That's the
recall.
most popular things to eat there. Well,
Yeah.
I got the raspberry macaroons for us, which are amazing. It's got the macaroons are kind of sweet, but they put a nice raspberry mousse, and then they put fresh raspberries, and then they top it with another macaroon cookie that look like Mickey ears, which is amazing. It's so good. Well, we ordered 3 of those, and I said, "And I want to get your banana bundt cake. It's a Christmas special. It looks great. Go ahead and give me one of those." She goes, "Can't do that." Okay, well, you have plenty over there in the case. "Yeah, we're not selling those." "Why aren't you selling them?" "Because they've already been bought." "All of those have been bought over there?" She's like, "Yeah." I said, "How?" She's like, "Mobile order." "Well, why didn't you just tell me that in the first place? You had mobile order. They're not available for purchase. Everything in that case." I said, "But you have some over here. So are those for sale too?" "No, those aren't for sale either." I go, "But you have a whole case of stuff." "Yeah, none of that stuff is for sale. And everything on that case over there with the banana bundt cakes and all the other stuff in that case, not for sale either." And I'm like, "So what's for sale?" She goes, "Everything in the case next to you right here." And I said, "There's like 3 or 4 items. That's it." She goes, "Yep." And I go, "It's 7:30 p.m. at night. You don't close till midnight. That's all you have left to sell?" And she's like, "Yep." And I'm like, and it was a busy day. It was a Saturday after Thanksgiving. So I get it. But I was like, "Geez." And I'm like, "All right, well, I guess, can I order some drinks then?" And she just wasn't real nice about it. If she just said, "Hey, sorry, we can't sell them. We already done mobile orders, and so everything in these 2 cases aren't for sale." Great, but I kept having to ask, "Well, why?" But you have stuff in there. So after that, my wife's like, "I think I'm done," and we didn't leave right then. We stayed for a few more hours, but she was pretty much done after that, customer service wise. And I was surprised because, again, usually the cast members are great. That was just a really, really bad experience to have 7 customer service issues in one day on a Saturday. It's kind of crazy. So
So did you go to City Hall and complain at all?
I did. So my wife. So here's the other thing. My wife doesn't like when I complain. I'm typically that type of person that will go and because my background's HR, so I will go and not to complain to be a pain or get anything, just to let them know, hey, this employee needs some help, or maybe you could coach them on what they did. So I did not do that because one, the line was really long for City Hall, and two, if my wife would have been like, seriously, you're taking time away from the family to complain about these cast members. Let's just leave it alone and go home. So that's what we did.
Have
Tom
you
says,
gotten a follow-up survey, like an email? Have you gotten an email survey?
No, that's the funny thing. I usually get those surveys all the time. I never got one for that day. And even if I didn't get one for that day, I would have filled it out for the next one, but I haven't gotten one for the next one either. So I was like, oh, well, forget it.
Oh, sorry, we're not doing that.
It's been weird with those email surveys, but like I roasted them on the last one that I
And again, like I said, most of the time we have great experiences. It was just a really off day for them, for a lot of the employees. And I'm sure because it was so busy, maybe, some of them had some bad days. I don't know, but I just didn't get that customer service experience like I normally get at Disneyland, which was really kind of disappointing.
Well, it reminds me of something, when I was working as a cast member, when I was working for a brief time at the Grand Floridian, is that we had the GRAND acronym, which is guest requests are never denied. And most of the things that you were going through would have been reprimandable offenses in my day.
Well,
so
yeah, see, same here. I work for Disney.
Keyword in your day.
Yeah, there's three cast members, 3 former cast members on the panel.
Yeah, the 3 of us. I mean, we would never have done that. In fact, if there was a problem or issue, I would always get a lead or a supervisor to help out with the situation, let them handle it, and let them know, hey, with this customer, is having an issue if I couldn't resolve it. And that wasn't happening with anyone. And I just couldn't believe, especially with like the monorail situation, the people from Italy, they're from out of the country. If my experience was a bad experience, I will let people know about that, right? I mean, I'm sure they're going back home and telling everyone, you're not going to believe this. Went to Disneyland, we got reprimanded, and we were punished because I touched the buttons on the monorail. But kind of the bad thing, I went to Disneyland Paris last year, and when I went there, one of the things I love about Disney is that they have the first visit buttons. So I got there and I said, can I get my first visit buttons? And they said, no, you can't do that. I'm like, why not? They're like, your daughter can get it, but you can't. We only give them to kids. I'm like, really? I'm like, that's kind of weird. But okay, whatever. So I got one for my daughter. But I remember that experience, and I'm like, in California, they don't do that, or Florida. They give out buttons all the time for the first experience to anyone. So it's just different.
That's so
Man, after all that, ate a couple of shots of tequila.
Yeah, speaking of which, I'll be right back. I'm just kidding.
I'll say this about
I will say this.
Did you see? Go ahead, Ron.
Well, I was just going to say, I was at Epcot today, and I didn't have any bad cast member experiences there. I'm just going to put that out there. So it was cold today, and it was I didn't really interact with cast members that much, but when I did, everybody was pleasant. I just want to put that out there for fairness, because we're not. I know we criticize executives a lot. We typically try to really cover for cast members, right? Like cast members, it's hard. They're low end. They're doing their job. But this is really surprising because this sounds like on that particular day, it almost sounds like a management issue. Like there's a, there was something, it seems like there might've been something going on with morale across the park.
It's cultural. Here's the thing. Disneyland has been most affected by this particular issue ever since the pandemic in general. When they had to basically fire all of their cast members during that time period. You'll remember that the parks, Disneyland Resort was closed for 412 days. It looked like in the fall that they were going to get back up. That was the fall of 2020, that is. But unfortunately, the state and Disney couldn't come to an agreement on terms.
Their buddy Gavin helped them out by keeping it closed.
Exactly, right? And that
at the request of Bob Iger.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Right? Just terrible, awful that the parks should have never been closed, especially for that long. Unfortunately, they were, and they didn't open until April 30th of the next year. Well, in that time period, they fired almost everybody at Disneyland Resort. And when it came to rehiring them for roles, half of them they could bring back and coax back, but the other half they couldn't. And so they just needed to fill bodies for roles at that point. And unfortunately, this is kind of where the culture of the Disneyland Resort has kind of atrophied when it comes to standards and practices and guidelines and everything else that used to make the Disneyland Resort really wonderful. The cast members there, I'd say because they had to deal with annual pass holders so frequently or locals so frequently, in which you have people coming back over and over again, it is a little bit different, or it presents itself more different challenges, I would say, than Walt Disney World Resort, for example. And so they've always been maybe a little bit pricklier than those cast members at Walt Disney World. But
is there a college program at Disneyland?
Yes, there is.
Oh, there is. Okay, I wasn't sure. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Do you know offhand the percentage of what's the ratio of CPs to regulars?
It's not at Disneyland Resort. It's not nearly as much as Walt Disney World. I think Walt Disney World, it's. I think it's.
I know it's like 40. It's 40 to 50% for.
Right, it's 40 at Disneyland.
Wow.
Bob, that's probably like what, 10% maybe.
I was going to say 10, 15, no more than 20.
A little bit more than 10%. Yeah, I'd say about 15.
Yeah, and so you get a lot of people doing all kinds of work, and again, because those standards have kind of atrophied from the cultural change, the cultural shift that's occurred from 2020, I just think this is kind of what it is.
It used to be something people really wanted to do, and they really wanted to do it well, and they felt like they had a calling, Now it's just, Taco Bell's full, I'll work here.
Yeah, well, the thing is, too, the Disney look standard, when that changed and it allowed more people of I'm not going to say more diverse backgrounds. It's just the fact that is more people with maybe different standards. That could
let's put it this way.
Okay,
if you were trained,
I'm trying to be nice.
Well, no. Let me just say this: if you were trained properly and you were told you had to meet a certain standard of physical grooming and whatever, it should be imparting into your psyche the fact that this just isn't another job, that it's something special, that it's something unique. The same way that, for example, the short haircut and the uniform turns recruits into soldiers and sailors. It gives them a sense of uniqueness and camaraderie and whatever. But if you haven't got that, well, what do you have? You got a bunch of people looking at the clock and wondering how soon they can punch out.
And I think that's what you have here. I mean, I don't think the same standards that would have been maintained have been maintained throughout this entire process.
You know what it just reminded me of? Your whole story. Dennis Miller used to do a routine about, he says, when did stewardesses get so darn surly? He says, they used to be nice. He says, now, basically their attitude is, look, I traded my entire youth for little bottles of booze and free tickets to Europe, and now I'm a waitress in a bad restaurant at 40,000 feet, so don't piss me off.
No, it's kind of true. Previously at Disneyland Resort, you used to have funny. And you see this in group communications and so forth. You have a group dynamic, which maybe in a certain department, maybe you have 10 people, one leaves, and then you have one that is added, right? And the 9 are able to maintain that culture. What happens when you lose 50% of them, though? What happens when 5 on 5? now you have a new set of standards and a new group dynamic going forward. I think that's what's really happened here, and it's super unfortunate because I was just at Disneyland yesterday, and before we actually were able to park there at the Toy Story lot, we have a mobility scooter that we bring for my dad, and when we're going to the parks, it's pretty important that we get a handicapped spot because of our wheelchair accessible van. Well, we have a handicap plate that has that is on the back of said vehicle. It's not on the front though, because Arizona is a little bit different in California in that you only have to have a back plate, not a front plate. And so while we were actually parking, Disney would previously they would actually like put like a little ribbon or something on your windshield in order to notify cast members down the line, hey, look, this is a handicap vehicle. It needs a handicap spot.
Right.
Well, unfortunately, they don't do that anymore for some reason. Don't know why. And so when we get to the spot in which, you either are going very, very far to park or somewhere a little bit closer for your vehicle, we tell them, hey, we have a handicap plate on the back. And the cast member who we told this to on this particular day was like, well, I don't see it. And it's like, well, that's bizarre because that's why we're telling you, because you cannot see it, and just gave us all kinds of attitude. And when we asked for, her name so that we know who she was unbelievably belligerent, rude. She was, bending over, showing her name tag and so forth, and being really, really.
God.
I mean, it's just it was something that really profoundly affected you before you even started your day. And unfortunately, I mean, the service at Disney Resort, I don't want to say has been emblematic of that, but stuff like you said before, guys, when you worked at Disney, stuff that wouldn't have been tolerable before has kind of been more normalized now, and that's most unfortunate. It's crazy, but yeah, that pretty much concludes Bob's Day from Hell. Hopefully the standards and everything improve. We have another guest joining us as well. Nolan, what is going on, good sir?
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Nolan.
Hello, friends. I tell you, I feel like that scene in Spider-Man 2 when he's trying to deliver the pizzas and he's doing everything he can to rush against the clock. Like, I was going up against fresh snowfall trying to get here. I'm like, I gotta be at the stream. I gotta be here. And thankfully, a little less disastrous. I didn't have a rude woman telling me that the pizzas were late anyways and all that jazz. But speaking of rude people, I was listening to Bob's stories, on before I came in here, and I just can't help but think about what's gonna be in store for us in the future. When they replace all the cast members with like AI robots. I'm just picturing like Hal being like, I can't let you do that, Bob. Anytime you switch in the line.
Sorry, Bob. I can't open the pod doors.
Oh, jeez.
And that is the perfect
My name is
transition
Hal.
to our next topic right here. This is great. Nolan, you set us up beautifully. This is exactly what I was going to go for. But I couldn't have done it as well as that.
Excellent.
Here we go. Our lead story for the day. This one kind of went under the radar here, but I think it's a very important story to discuss. Walt Disney World pilots AI-powered self-checkout. Now, from what I can tell, because we watch the Walt Disney Company pretty closely, especially Walt Disney World, I think this is the first time that I've seen a AI-powered anything that's guest-facing in this way at Walt Disney World. Please tell me if I'm wrong, Joshua, and I'm sure you have much more information to provide us right here. I'll go ahead and start this story off, and then I'm going to throw it right to you, Joshua. Walt Disney World has rolled out a new AI-powered checkout system at Disney's All-Star Sports Resort this morning. This is the first public use of an AI-powered self-checkout at Walt Disney World, and it's currently in testing for more widespread adaptation around the resorts and theme parks. The AI-powered self-checkout runs on an auto-canteen platform, but contains the UI changes to make it feel more Disney. We made it out to Disney's All-Star Sports Resort to try out the new system. Utilizing vision-based AI, the self-checkout process aims to reduce waiting and increase efficiency. point-of-sale locations. The stated goal of Auto Canteen is to create transactions that are 10 seconds or less, reducing the amount of time standing in line to pay for food. Of course, another benefit of the system will be a reduction in staff, with only one cast member required to monitor a bank of self-checkout systems. This frees up the rest of the cast members to help guests or clean the dining area, or perhaps not be employed at all, which I suspect is where they're going. Currently, there are only 2 stations set up with a single cast member monitoring both stations. Of course, this is day 1 of testing, so there are other back office cast members and managers around to monitor the process and assist if needed. Joshua, like I said, this is, I think, the first time I've seen something like this. Do we see an expansion of the system? What do you have to share for us when it comes to this story?
Yeah, this is 1,000% certainty that they're definitely going to expand this, as well they should. The only thing that I think is a little weird, I mean, other than the whole entire visualization where they kind of scan your tray, the other part of that is not AI driven at all, which is weird for them to word it that way. Also, I thought it was rather laughable down further in the article where the union was getting involved with it, and they said that they don't want to have any of their any AI replacement of their roles. Well, that's going to happen. And normally, like, of course, I'm a historian and everything, so I stand against a lot of the quote unquote changes that are happening everywhere. But when you're looking at a system like this, yeah, it has to happen, because if for no other reason, they have a massive labor shortage in Central Florida, and it is only going to get progressively worse. And it is an intractable problem. There is no way to fix this. None. It is going to continue to where they're going to have less and less people that are going to either have the ability or the desire to work in theme parks. So they're going to have to automate systems like this. You do not need guest relations level care and attention for guests when they're checking out their food. They just need to check out their food. And there's a lot of people, I would say the vast majority of people are already preconditioned to this. I mean, it's not too dissimilar to what happens in your local Walmart. And I'm not saying, that, like Disney is of the same standard or anything. I'm just saying that the public has been preconditioned on these things. I mean, it's going to happen, and it needs to happen. So to say that's just like, okay, you want to protect your jobs, that's laughable, because there's not that many people who are going to be able to do that. One of the reasons is the pay. They can't, even if Walt Disney World was able to retain all of its profits and it didn't have to take almost all of them and filter them into these horrible movies that no one ever asks for. Even if they had, even if they were able to retain all of that, they couldn't afford to pay people the amount that it's going to be needed to maintain a standard of living in Central Florida, because Central Florida has also a massive gentrification problem as well as a labor shortage problem. So we've got so they're going to have to do this. They're going to have to do this with something. It's going to be this first, and then it will probably. And I think that merchandise is going to be soon to follow. They already have the mobile checkout, so that one's going to be that one's already in existence. This is just a different form of that, because they have. I guess it's because they're trying it out for the trays, so that it makes it a little bit similar to the process that you already have, where a person visually looks at your tray and figures out exactly what you have on there. So it's interesting that they're doing that with the photo system. But other than that, it's not that dissimilar from that. One of the things about the AI systems that I continuously talk about is that the first time that they actually tried to do something like this was with My Magic Plus and the RFID tag system. So when they did that, I was part of that rollout when we had My Magic Plus and everything, and we went and we transitioned our entire software systems and touch points and all of that wonderfully horrific stuff. And we initially thought that they were trying to get rid of our jobs in specifically in the resorts and concierge and guest relations and that sort of thing. But it actually ended up causing a lot more problems than anything else, which is one of the many reasons why I rail against the over importance of AI. because there are certain roles. This is not one of them. There are certain roles that have to be done by human beings, and it should be done by human beings, and it shouldn't be used as Justine Bateman said just last night on Film Threat. This should not be used as an excuse to fire people, but that's more of a creative end of it. It's not really related to this specific topic, although I could go for ages on AI dynamics and the destruction of the discourse that's been happening with that particular subject.
It's a changing world out here, that's for sure, guys.
I'm trying to figure out how broccolini looked like, or bacon looked like broccolini to this thing.
Yeah, didn't correctly navigate that one, that's for sure. And I'm sure broccolini a little bit less on the on the price than maybe bacon.
Everything at Disney is becoming broccoli.
Erica, please.
Let's say, look on
the other
bright
hand,
side.
if
jerks,
I was going to say, if Tiana's had been a mountain of bacon, I'm sure I would be more happy about it than I am. So,
yeah, that's a good point. That's the broccoli joke right there.
Tiana's bacon adventure.
I think Joshua.
Erica, what were you
right.
saying? Oh, sorry.
Oh,
I didn't even get to hear what Erica said. Sorry. So.
I was just kind of making a wisecrack joke that at least with this AI technology and even the mobile, well, I've actually used the mobile checkout to avoid cast members because I've had negative experiences. So this kind of adds to that. If people want to avoid, it's sad to say that, but I mean, I'm not really surprised. I know it's got pros and cons on both sides.
See, here's the thing, though. Disney has had a reputation for great customer service, whether it's all that stuff that Bob had to go through or this. It's not like your typical cafeteria or fast food joint in that regard. Nobody expects to be treated like a king at McDonald's, but you expect a little more, and you're certainly paying a little more. And that's a reputation you can only lose once, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
Well, they're losing it.
I thought you should have told them, Barry. You should have told them, you know what? I hope AI replaces you one day because you're being a real today.
Wow. So, can I record that, Erica? I'll just play that next time I'm there.
I'm assuming
I wasn't there. You're lucky my sister wasn't there.
Oh, wow.
She schooled 4 cast members in one morning on a field trip to Animal Kingdom because of a snafu with the ticketing system, and it was Disney's fault. Oh, and she's one of these. I
think what you have to do is you have to learn how to say, "I'm sorry, I don't understand" in Esperanto. And just keep smiling and repeating that over and over, no matter what they say.
So here's an interesting
to the side, and she reminded them of their training, and then told them, "I worked here for 12 years. I know what I'm talking about." And she ripped all 4 of them a new one, Ooh. And that included a manager, I think, in that 4. Yeah, she does not mess around. I mean, yeah.
Here's something that's interesting about this, though, is that if you were to replace a lot of the service ones, so a lot of the ones that I think that people typically think of when they think of the theme parks or they think about the resorts, is that they think about the ones that are truly hands-on, like an attraction operator or that sort of thing, a greeter position, either a greeter position in merchandise or food and beverage or any of the other divisions. The question is, it's just like, because a lot of Disney deals in what we refer to as the gray. It's just like there's no. I personally don't think that everything is a shade of gray. I think that there is some black and white clearly, but how would you be able to program a system to be able to have any input of gray? And I think that they would start off like 100% black and white. It would be yes, you can do this, or no, you cannot. And that is the end of the subject. So it actually, your experience there yesterday would have been almost the same, if not worse, under an AI regime than it would be with actual people.
Sure,
with
because to
actual
make
people,
it work better, you got to limit the choices. Exactly.
Because it's all about the efficiency, and we all know that, like there efficiency, and I'm an efficiency nut, and I love efficiency, but it does have limits, and it can completely destroy everything if you leave it to its own devices.
And my father used to laugh but be critical of salad bars at restaurants, because he'd say the problem is you give them so many choices, they stand there and think about it. The person in front of you standing there saying, do I want jicama or don't I want jicama? And the whole system shuts down. So,
Well, to be
but
honest,
like I say, if we had never been acclimated to it being great, we don't know any better, which is kind of the same thing as that stuff in my new editorial on that park place, which you may want to look at, folks.
Maybe.
So,
well, I'm not surprised that they're doing this after all. I mean, look at what they're doing over at the parks. I mean, Disneyland Paris already has it, and kind of they have something like it at Walt Disney World, but they're getting the new automated, entrances over at Disneyland and DCA being installed. And you basically scan yourself in. A cast member is on the other side just to make sure that everything's going well. Same here. You saw a cast member in the previous picture with the AI, and you're going to be scanning your own stuff, or it's going to be scanning your stuff for you, and they'll help you as needed. But yeah, it's going to be going that way quite a bit. I think we're going to see a lot more of it in Walt Disney World, like Joshua was saying, just because of the employees and trying to find that work base that's not there, where we have a lot more out here in California, and it's a lot easier to find cast members, and they are actually hiring a lot more cast members right now. But eventually, I'm sure they'll get to this, and they'll start doing more of this at Disneyland.
It's interesting to me that they do all of this testing at the All-Stars. Something like this, I believe it was last year, rolled out at the All-Stars as well. And I don't, it's not easy for me to get to the All-Star Resort, so I typically don't see it. That was it was a photo type thing, and I only saw the articles about it where you could walk up to this thing and have your photo taken with a character, but that wasn't actually there. And I don't know, Vash, if you remember that story coming out or any of those types of things, how they worked, but it was only at the All-Stars. I never saw it anywhere else on Walt Disney World property.
Well, I think they test these things out there because it's the least expensive room, right?
Well, it's also related to the overall throughput of people there. So you wouldn't want to do this like, if you forget just the price point, forget the price point at all. You wouldn't want to do this at a deluxe resort, because if you did it at a deluxe resort, the usage of it would be so infrequent that you wouldn't be able to get the proper data that you need to. They need a massive amount of volume of people to do this with, and because it's of a lower tier so far as the cost of the resort is concerned, there's also not as much pushback that you would get from the guest anyway. So this is those two reasons are the prime reason why you would want to do this.
Yeah, they're assuming that the crowd there has lower expectations based on the price point.
Is this AI asking for a tip like many quick service places do nowadays?
Hey, if they, there's that meme out there, right? Anything you do in America, tip, please. So, Joshua, I want to kind of ask you, what roles could you envision AI replacing at the Disney parks?
Well, definitely this one. Also, merchandise as well. I should also clarify something about this. Okay, they're not even in this article. They're not even using the term AI correctly in the way that everyone else uses the term incorrectly. Because most of the time when you're talking about AI, you're not talking about actual artificial intelligence, which is technically AGI, which is artificial generalized intelligence. Which contrary to a lot of people, that will absolutely never happen. So we will not have Skynet. We're not going to have any of those particular issues. There is a difference between science fiction and actual science, get Terminator out of your brain. Terminator is a fairy tale in this context. It is not actual science. Oh, great! Now he's out to get me. But also, so what you're really looking at is you're looking at algorithm-based or large language-based models. These
Right.
are very, very cut and dry. If you really want to get into the specifics and everything, you don't have to do the thing where you have a position of gray. It's only black and white for these types of systems. Now, the other thing that I think that would happen, I think that traction hosts their job security is definitely there. They will always be there for it. It's a safety critical thing. You're not going to be able to do anything with their positions at all. Just for basic like life, just like because these AI systems aren't fast enough. They don't have nearly the amount of sophistication. They'll kill people. But the other thing that I do know that just popped into my head is that for a brief time, I worked in a position at the parks called the DOC, which is the Disney Operational Command Center. And there is an enormous amount of video cameras inside the parks. Tremendous amount. And for example, in the queue of Avatar Flight of Passage, which is one of the most elaborate queues ever created, that one has close to, I think it's around like 26 closed circuit cameras inside of it, and they use that primarily to monitor the line.
Yeah.
And that's something that you could do automated inside of the parks, and that would be wonderful. But that doesn't take anybody's positions away, but that would just be an enhancement of what's actually there. You could have that calibrated to where you can have an extraordinarily effective means of being able to calculate the wait time, regardless of anything that they would do to amp up the lightning lane sales.
Well, also it's there for loss prevention, by which I mean,
yes,
if you've got a record of everything that happened and somebody decides to sue you, if you can prove it didn't happen the way they thought, that's worth it for the price of a camera.
Well, there you go. Look at that. There's an article for that.
I do remember this actually when Joshua actually said it. I was like, oh yeah, Universal did patent some technology around those lines, which was utilizing a whole bunch of systems, including some artificial intelligence, like you pointed out there, Joshua, remedial, but certainly implemented some type of large language model, some learning in order to monitor the line and kind of see whether or not people were actually line jumping like it says right here, or acting in a manner that maybe you required a human touch at some point, let's say.
Well, it needs to be visible too. I remember when I had season tickets at Dodger Stadium for 26 years, it used to be that at every inning break, an usher in uniform with a little straw hat, whatever, would come down the aisle while the organ played and stand at the end of the aisle and smile and answer questions and whatever. And then when the game began again, they'd walk on back up to the top. Every aisle in the stadium. Then they started thinking, well, we could save some money. How about if we did it every other aisle? And then every third aisle. And when that started happening, the amount of drunken fights and everything else increased because people knew they weren't being seen. There's just, what is that old thing about a society with guns is a more polite society? Well, not guns, but certainly knowing that if you did something you were going to get caught is an inhibiting factor to people who otherwise don't give a damn.
Correct.
So, there's that.
Absolutely. I would agree. Now, I know Bob has to run here. I do want to cover some super chats really, really fast because I think they're relevant to the conversation. Obviously, I'd like his input as well. Go and show with the $4.99. Thank you so much. Good sir. Sometimes you got to give a customer some crap. Nobody wants to be that guy or Karen, but you're a customer, not a doormat. That is a fair point right there. That is for sure. Bob, I'm sure you're looking to go back to guest relations as soon as we leave here, right?
I'm good.
Okay.
I would.
Well, I know you would.
Watch out for Erica.
Erica's
right
like,
there.
Bob,
She'll
go back
definitely
there right
come to
now. I'll be back there on Sunday, Erica.
Thank you so much, Go and Show.
Women got a long memory.
She ain't wrong about that. She's not wrong. Calhoun with $20. Thank you so much. That's the closest to the cheap seats they can get. Walmart in my area is ripping them out, vastly reducing the ratio of machine to worker because of the amount of theft. Disney merch is going to get wrecked. Hashtag eBay. That's an interesting point right there. I know merchandise sales are down at the Walt Disney World Resort, and I believe that also at Disneyland Resort as well. And any of these digital automated systems that they've tried to implement just haven't really been picked up because, well, people are already on their phones all the time for Lightning Lane and so forth that they don't really want to engage with their phone any more than that. I think they called it phone fatigue is what the internal labeling was of that whole thing. So, yeah, the theft is definitely a problem. You definitely had to look at that. I would say less so than maybe a regional park would be, let's say, for example, but it definitely is something that they need to monitor, and I'm sure they will be when it comes to these new systems.
There are multiple systems in place. I really shouldn't get into them, and neither should anybody else who's been a former cast member on there. But this is that the theft angle there is just not a concern at all for that. I will just put that out there. There is no concern whatsoever for theft inside of the merchandise. Yeah.
Hey, Joshua would know, that's for sure. Bob, where can the people find you before you head out the door?
Well, I'd just like to say thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure being with all of you, Erica, Nolan, Joshua, Ron, Lou, and of course, VashSky. You guys can follow me over at BerryPlace28. You can find me at YouTube. That's where I do most of my live streaming. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. And I will be at a media event tonight. There's actually the Santa Ana Haunt OC Nightmares presenting an Xmas horror story maze. So I will be there for the event. So come join me. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hang out for about an hour or two and join the fun. And then I'll be back at Sunday at Disneyland. So it's a busy week of streaming, and I hope you guys will come join me. And as always, thank you for having me on the show.
Fantastic. And you can also follow Bob at Park Streamers Hangout as well, where they just had a stream last night right there with Theme Park Casual, Cordy from California. Definitely check that out. Thank you so much, Bob, for coming on in and joining us.
Last night. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you hosting me. Thank you so much there, Bob. Very much appreciate it. You're a wonderful contributor to this show, to others. Thank you so much for everything you do for our community of live streamers here. Thank you. And I guess that brings us to our next topic of the day here. I'm debating. Thank you, Bob. I'm debating on where we should go, but I think with Joshua here and everything else, I think this is a very important story to cover. So let's go ahead and get into it. Oh, please.
I have a quick question for Josh. Just a real quick question. Were you a cast member during the Pal Mickey era? That's a technology question, by the way.
Yes, I actually was for that. That was the precursor for a lot of the My Magic Plus RFID technology. I actually one of the people that was my managers had the genius idea that they for Pal Mickey they put the sensor in his nose. The guy who invented that was one of my managers at the time. I'm just like, that is extraordinary, because they needed something that would be very well visible. Because normally you would think, because everyone like analogizes things to actual people, it's just like, oh no, you put it in the eyes. No. Then you have like almost 360 sensor if you put it in the nose.
That makes sense.
That's
well, the reason I asked is I was talking about that during my stream today. How in 2006 I had my pal Mickey when I came to the parks as a guest from a different state and paid thousands of dollars for the vacation. And Pal Mickey really did actually enhance my vacation. And it was a lot different than a phone app, because you had a character that was actually talking to you about things in the park. Would they ever bring something like that back again? I don't know why they discontinued it, but I just wondered if they would ever bring it back.
Can you imagine what they could do now that they have the Star Wars IP? You could have like a little droid following you around like BB-8 or something like that. Wouldn't that be so cool and so much more engaging than a phone?
Personally, I think it would get to be really pushy and nasty. And the reason I say that is When we first started getting smartphones and everything, my wife found an app called, what was it called, honey? With the one with the told you what you were passing? It was like Tour Guide or something like that. And wherever you were, it would go ding and tell you over on the right, there's a marker for a famous historical event that you didn't give a damn about. And it did it all day. And it got really old really quick. Tour Guide?
It's been discontinued, that app.
Yeah, well, she tells me now it's been discontinued. I wonder why.
I'm
What was
sure.
it called, though? Yeah.
Not
Anyway,
Tour Plans.
all I'm saying is, to me, it's a cuter, plushier version of being on your phone all day long. But that's just me.
Well, I would also say that, like it's a cool concept and it works great in theory, but when you're dealing with it in actual practice all the time, it can become annoying. For example, when that would go through when I was working at the Hollywood Tower Hotel, we have a very creepy atmosphere and we have a certain mood that we want to maintain the entire way through. And Pal Mickey was killing our mood. He was killing our vibe.
Exactly.
I can't
It's
imagine
not
that.
scary. It's cute. Honest.
Killed the
Your
vibe,
ghoulish
man.
pallor displays an aura of "Hi, I'm Mickey."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's not just the spooky attractions like Mansion and Tower. I mean, you can extrapolate that out to anything. Now, obviously, there are ways that you could finesse the system to where they don't interact once you get inside of a building, that sort of thing. That you could do. There are it's a technology that one of the things that they did after that, because they were really going for interactivity, and that was such a buzzword for so long inside of the parks and resorts. It's just like, okay, we want to be more interactive. As I've explained on several different shows, I'm like, you actually want to be as little interactivity in the modern usage of that term as possible when you're dealing with parks. You actually want to deal with more passive attractions, passive experiences, because that's intrinsic to the whole parkness of a theme park. So yeah, I mean, it was a cool technology, and I think that it was the best kind of implementation of it. But they've gone so far away from that. And you really should just be absorbed in what you're doing at the same time. I think that also it was geared largely towards people who were high repeat visitors. So so it was because they were looking for something to make it, because it really, I mean, like I hate to sound cynical about this, but it's the fact. It's just like they're not. Even at that time, they weren't investing in the parks nearly as much as they should be, if at all. So they were constantly trying to come up with new ways of putting more lipstick on a tired old pig. So it's just like, okay, well, we don't actually want to put any investment on this, but let's just go ahead and let's tweak it where we're going to enhance the attractions experience by having Mickey chime in every 5 seconds.
And
so I have to ask
that first ad you put up, it said either buy or rent one. God,
yeah, you can rent
when
them.
Somebody's been slobbering over all day the day before. Do you? I don't care what they say they're doing to clean it.
Joshua, I gotta ask, how many times throughout the day did you think about, man, I just want to throw that plush off the Tower of Terror. I just want to do it right now.
All the time. I'm just like, I would. Fortunately, there weren't that many that when they're in there, because typically they were for kids, for typically young children. But yeah, I think that as part of the interface, it's been a long while. But you could actually press a button on his body somewhere where he would shut up. But yeah, it was. They were just like, yeah, you're really killing my whole entire performance theming thing right now. I'm trying to get you all creeped out before you go onto the thing, and I've got Mickey in that ear right
Oh.
That's hilarious. I mean, I remember these. I remember the big push for them. From what I remember, they actually worked fairly well, especially for the time period that they were released in. Do you, Joshua, do you imagine them doing anything like this again in this fashion, or maybe even, implemented in some way via the Disney apps that they have right now, or is this kind of gone by the wayside?
I think that it is. It's a technology that's come and gone. I really think like they're going to, because then they would have to because the only way that this can work is that you have to have a physical object that is not a phone for it. So it would have to be like, like somebody said, like a little BB-8 or something that you would do that. First of all, BB-8 can't even speak English, so there's a bit of a story problem with that one. But also, it's just not practical for it's not in alignment with their business goals anymore. That shows it.
Beyond that, you have the Tomorrowland problem in spades, which was always, oh, gee, tomorrow caught up, we have to redo the land. Well, this thing, the technology that's, oh boy, exciting for about 6 months, and then it gets superseded by more. I'll tell you where a similar thing is working, however, and that's those wristbands at Nintendo Land and the magic wands that trigger things for the Harry Potter stuff.
That's a good point.
Correct.
So, that's, but there you have to actively wiggle it in front of whatever it is and pay for it and know that it's going to happen. I understand that the ones in the new Harry Potter stuff at Epic are really special and they're going to enhance the ones at the other two parks. But that's paying for an experience. And also the one in Nintendo earns you points towards being able to do a attraction that you wouldn't do otherwise. So.
Yeah, and it's also site specific as well. It's a very specific way of doing it. So you couldn't implement the wands throughout the entirety of Universal.
Right.
They were supposed to do something like that with Galaxy's Edge, and it just never panned out. And now they've got.
They said they were going to put interactive stuff, and then they decided to put it all in the hotel, and then it didn't work there either.
I remember the Legends of Frontierland test that was actually done. This really great interactive game that was very cast member driven, but I mean the potential was absolutely there. They were absolutely supposed to put that in Ron. In fact, one of the empty buildings that is in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge was supposed to be the kind of the play center in which people were battling for territory within Galaxy's Edge. Very, very cool stuff. Never implemented. Then they tried it again with Mama Saurus Rex actually talking about this with My Magic Plus, the Magic Band Plus, sorry.
Right.
That they implemented, and they had a bounty hunter game, and almost nobody did it after what 2 weeks of.
No, I did the cast member test for that. I was part of the cast member test for that in Galaxy's Edge and took my older son with me, and we were bored after about 5 minutes of trying it, and we took the Magic Band back to where we got it from and said, "This is not helpful. This will waste our entire night here."
Yeah, well, of course, the one place where interactive stuff to me worked was Toontown. When you had all those buttons you could push and stuff happened, but you weren't being charged extra for it, and you didn't have.
But
to
if
do
you're
it
Italian, you can't press buttons.
Oh.
Yeah, but see that's part of the problem that you're dealing with interactivity inside of a theme park is that if you make it truly immersive and you make it something that's almost on an EA Games level experience, or something that you would have with a console inside in your home, which you would kind of want to do, then it becomes a massive operational problem inside of the parks, and that's the reason why they got rid of so many of the interactive features inside of the queues. I know because one of my friends was working on all of the interactive queue projects and everything, and then was summarily laid off.
Scene ones, is that right?
Yeah, Scene One. That was the whole entire thing. Was a Band-Aid for their capacity issues. But one of the examples of that would be the interactive games that used to be in the queue for Space Mountain at Disney World, where you would stop, and then they would have the people that would get involved with the games, and then the queue wouldn't move again because then everyone would be playing the game. Right. Or that they would lose interest in the game. The whole entire thing just does not work on any particular level. Like parks should be parks. You should be doing physical things. You should be enjoying the environment. You could be enjoying the landscaping, and of course, all of the wonderful music and everything. This is not a time to push buttons. This is not a time for you to put yourself in there as the third person character. This isn't Laura Croft goes to Disney World. It's you going to Disney World.
Well, and I think the ultimate example of how things get old quick when they're revolutionary, was World Key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have a whole thing.
It was fantastic when you went there and said, "Oh gosh," but you were interacting with a real human being. No, 7:30 is full, but you want to go at 8? Or, well, what else is in that area? Well, we have the German restaurant. Well, there was real people. It was concierge service. It wasn't just a machine saying, "Did you want left or right?" Doom, you know.
And also, that was perfectly in alignment with Epcot's whole entire mission and everything. I mean, that was really a precursor towards Google, the internet, and everything. It was an amazing thing. It was kind of like the Acatherian mechanism that was discovered in Greece, I believe. You know, it's just like it was this astrological clock that had gears and everything. But it's been there for like thousands of years. World Key is exactly like that. That was an amazing technology for a park that said rightfully that the 21st century begins October 1st, 1982.
Yeah.
Well,
those were the days.
Speaking of interactivity at the parks.
Well, and of course, the other interactivity there was, I'll never forget, at the beginning of Epcot, going to the Imagination Pavilion and seeing those great jumping fountains.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wanted to do that at home, you could go to this kiosk in Communicore where they gave you all the information about all the technology being shown all around the park. Here, this is where the pumps come from, and this is the people that make the mesh that keeps it from splashing when it hits the surface. And I grabbed all of that stuff. You know, it was great. I'd never built one, but
they can't do it now because they can't have something saying, "Well, this is what caused the sewage leak at Magic Kingdom today, and this is where the sewage smell."
Yeah, that's back when things worked. Oh, well, that is a flying.
Speaking of things working, not working, maintenance, interactivity. Well, we have all of those things merge into really kind of this story right here. When you really think about it, what have you done to my ship? Weeds are growing on top of the Millennium Falcon in Star Wars Galaxy.
Going to cut a few parsecs off the Kessel Spice run, isn't it?
What a piece of junk.
It's over. Go ahead and bulldoze the whole entire thing. Make it into the Discovery Bay attraction. We're done.
Yeah.
It's over. I mean, if we're using the whole entire Rivers of America thing, no, that tree means that it's got to go. The whole thing out.
Exactly.
Out.
So
Come on.
This is absolutely incredible. So yeah, this was the interactive ride that they have over there at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge of the 2 attractions. So this was Project Big Bird and Project Alcatraz. And Big Bird's whole thing was you're gonna fly the Millennium Falcon. And I don't know, if you're in the pilot seat, you know, it's an okay experience. For everybody else though, maybe not so much. And we are getting a new mission pretty soon here, as announced by D23. Don't know when exactly that'll be, but it is, I guess, coming.
You know, I remember when Star Tours opened and they said the great thing is we can change the show, you know, every year, every day, every whatever, and it somehow stayed the same for what, 15 years?
20.
Oh man, was it?
Oh god, it was
I didn't change till
20
what?
20 plus years, something like that.
2011.
I remember talking about cutting edge. I remember the first time I rode it, which was probably 6-8 weeks after it opened. And there was this guy next to me who ran the flight simulators at Top Gun. And he said, I'm really excited by this. He says, because this is a 15-degree motion base and ours is only 8.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
So there you go.
There you go. Guests completing work for Hondo Onaka at Black Spire Outpost might notice something strange while counting the number of parts on top of the Millennium Falcon. The ship parked in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disney's Hollywood Studios is now home to a small plant. From the windows of the queue for Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, a plant appears to be growing on the surface of the ship. A couple smaller growths can also be spotted nearby. How does this happen? How in
this
the
is
world?
explainable. Vash, the new story coming to this ride is a crossover with Guardians of the Galaxy, and they are growing Baby Groot.
Oh man!
See, I heard it differently. This is a souvenir from Endor.
Don't make excuses for this. This is terrible.
Well, I think it's a tribute to the weather, because Bob, of course, cares about that. I was saying when they named the headquarters after him, I said, golly, after all, he is the second most famous weatherman to be around when there are disasters in Florida, the first being Jim Cantori. But anyway.
But Jim doesn't cause the hurricanes. Bob actually causes his.
Yeah, well.
This is so bizarre. Apparently, this was there for a long, long time. We have some photos from Twitter here. One from Chaz Finder talking about this, and then one from Ollie in
Needs
Disney.
a little Christmas bulb on top.
Yes.
Yes.
You should decorate it for Life Day.
Yes.
Just kind of lean over like the.
Well, it's about a also maybe if you put like 150 lights on there, it could be like an Osborne tribute. Just 150 lights.
Yeah, there you go.
The little tree. Osborne. Oh, I love that. That's so great.
And it looks like a pine tree.
It's so weird, and apparently.
It kind of looks months. Like is it like juniper or whatever that they put in the top of a drink sometimes?
Oh, that's extra.
A little juniper sprig.
This is absolutely bizarre. How does this even happen? How does this even occur? How does nobody see it?
Florida.
Well, I don't know. Theoretically,
when you see something, look at over on the right. It's grown since last month.
Right.
I mean, somebody's seen it for a whole month and done nothing about it.
There was nothing in the handbook about plants on the Millennium Falcon, I guess.
I bet it's a jurisdictional issue. I don't know if you've ever heard Bob Newhart's routine where he's the night watchman at the Empire State Building when King Kong climbs the building, and he's calling the boss to tell him there's this giant ape on the outside. He said, "You want me to go up and poke him in the eye with my broom?" He says, "Sir, my jurisdiction only goes as far as his navel." So.
My God.
Oh my gosh.
But how this actually happens is that first of all, the whole entire weathering and the gritty atmosphere and theming for Galaxy's Edge, that also has a side effect where they don't have to maintain anything. And that was intentional. That was part of the entire design work, is that they didn't want to you couldn't do like a wonderful Coruscant, which I think that most people would actually like to go to over Galaxy's Edge.
Yes.
But because everything's shiny, everything has to be brand new.
You'd actually have to pressure wash it every night,
exactly,
and that might cause lights not to work.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yes, a lot of callbacks today. Jeez, not good. Normally, I'm the person who does all the digs, but everyone else is doing it. But
we need to dig that tree out.
Yes, right. Yeah, but I mean, this would naturally happen. It's just I'm surprised that there isn't more overgrowth on it, because they're not going to pressure wash that thing. There's no way. I mean, they'll go up there. Hopefully, sometime or another, they'll go ahead and they'll pull out the little twig, and then they'll be fine with it. But yeah, they're not going to maintain this. So,
wouldn't it be great if when the stormtroopers
going to go and pluck it?
Wouldn't it be great if when the stormtroopers came out, one of them came out with a little twig growing off of his helmet?
Somebody says, "I thought this was a theme park and everything was going to be pristine." I have altered.
All I want to know
I do not alter it further.
So I can put a red Christmas bulb on top of it, and a big one.
Man, it's so absolutely bizarre, because you would never find this. I mean, I hope you would never find this on a Disney castle and so forth, right? Like Cinderella Castle or Sleeping Castle. And really, this is the showpiece for this land. So you would have expected it not to occur here. Josh was exactly right, though, because of its downtrodden or I should say used aesthetic that they're going for here. These things can occur.
If it's dillweed, does that mean that this is a Chicago-style weenie?
Ron?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I wonder if, I was just watching the holiday special, and I'm guessing that this was there on it during the filming of the holiday special, but it was all at night, so you really couldn't see that. But I noticed something about the holiday special when they filmed the scenes. It was a really good scene for the holiday special. I can't remember the Japanese group that was singing, but they had fireworks and stuff behind Galaxy's Edge. And I was thinking to myself, if anybody sees this and thinks that they are going to get that when they go to Disney, they're going to be so disappointed, because what they show for the holiday special, nothing like that ever actually happens in Galaxy's Edge. Ever. So people will be very disappointed if they think they're going to get anything like that. But it was really cool for the special, you know.
It was. Apparently, we get trees growing out of our Millennium Falcon instead of, I don't know, the interactive elements that you may see during those holiday specials.
I
and so
know.
forth.
You moved the soundtrack from the Tiki Room here, and he says, "From my limbs, let new life fall."
Oh, that's pretty good. Oh man, Lou, you got it going on today. It's just incredible.
You could be an Imagineering scriptwriter, Lou. You really could.
It's so
Yeah, well, I'm available at very high prices.
Well, apparently, so this original article was written December 3rd. After it had been illuminated by sites like Walt Disney World News Today, and even ours, to be frank, we were posting about it on Twitter and making a big joke about it. Well, apparently they did remove it finally, December 9th, right here. Weeds removed from the top of Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, Galaxy's Edge. That's kind of the what needs to be noted here, is because removed from the top, you see. They didn't remove all the growth, as we had actually Marvin, the movie monster from Toontown TV, which will be following the show. Actually, he actually went in there and took some photos for us. They didn't get everything out of the Millennium Falcon. You can see some growth occurring in various areas around here. Got some B-roll for you that we can show, showing all of this. It really is tough to see something
They're
like this.
going to have a fern-based drink at the bar for $25. You know it.
You know, how much Disney has been showing how much they really care about their older attractions. I'm just afraid this thing's going to be neglected, and in like 20 years, it's going to look like one of those zombie movies where there's plants growing out all over the entire thing, you know, like the windows falling out and all that.
Ah, yes.
Well, it would be cooler.
That's true. Go ahead, Josh.
So let me get this straight though. This thing is supposed to be in space. This is supposed to be just landed here. Is that how this story is supposed to work? Because with all this growth and everything, I'm a little confused about all of these alleged spacecraft that's supposed to be dotting this whole entire area that are not really concrete. You know, that they can actually move, right? I mean, that's the immersion TM. Yeah.
I agree. Erica, you were going to say?
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, all I can say is that this entire land is such a disappointment when I compare it to something that was, I don't think it was as expensive to pull it off, and that was Star Wars Weekends. And it was, for a Star Wars fan, I personally love Star Wars Weekends so much better. And I was, you know, I remember when they announced this and my hope for what this was going to be, especially when I saw that at the time, wow, they're destroying a lot to get rid of this. I can't believe they're getting rid of Streets of America and the Backlot Tour and all that. I mean, like, I was heartbroken that they were getting rid of that at the time. Now, I'm not so much heartbroken as I am pissed that they got rid of all that to put this piece of junk in there, because Star Wars Weekends was phenomenal for a Star Wars fan. And this is an incredible letdown. The best thing about this land for me personally is there's kind of a weird barbecue rib dish that I kind of like, but they could locate it somewhere else. But I like those ribs, and that's about it.
Well, they got rid of our catty rib dish here. But
one of my first appearances on one of the shows was doing a autopsy on this land. They only gave me 45 minutes. I could have ran a competition between myself and Jenny Nichols on how horrible this land is from a design perspective. I mean, I seriously could talk about it for probably about maybe not 4 hours, but I could definitely get it for 3. I could do it for 3 because it's so lifeless and totally and I mean this is a real word because I know what it actually means. This is the antithesis of theme park design and what it was created for.
Yeah, it is.
Yes. I think you're You're pretty spot on, Joshua. I know they took some chances, some risks. They tried to rewrite the playbook here. I just don't think it really worked out. One of those things being their strong adherence to story to an insane degree. You can actually see Shannon Ace having a little fun here at Walt Disney World News today. According to the story of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, the Millennium Falcon is flown frequently, which would make it quite difficult for foliage to withstand traveling through the galaxy at hyperspeed. Just as Joshua mentioned here, people putting this together. I'll say this. Last night, I was able to experience Fire of the Rising Moons, which is essentially the fireworks at Disneyland. Because of where they're positioned, they actually pop off right above Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, right behind these spires right here. It actually is a pretty amazing thing. Unfortunately, for 5 years, they didn't actually have any music playing in this area whatsoever in order to keep it, consistent with their story inside of this place. And it was really disappointing because you had this great vantage point of the fireworks, but yet we didn't.
It's
really
literally the best character in Star Wars. The greatest character in all of Star Wars is John Williams, and they did this without John Williams.
Oh, I mean, it's so annoying.
Ridiculous. Yeah, and just one thing about this photo. When I first saw this, like when the press releases that are coming out, that barricade around it annoys me to absolute no end.
Yeah,
I mean, you should have made that. You should have made that like a kids' play area if you wanted to do it that way. Yes. But that just screams artifice to me. That is the most. That is the biggest. I mean, even under your own metrics, under your own story, that's an enormous violation. And it was so stupid that they did that.
And it's also annoying that they did that too with it's that one moment in Rise of Resistance when you actually are on the Star Destroyer. You see that full accompaniment of stormtroopers, and you have the rails right in front of there, taking you right out of it and back into a theme park setting. So I do agree with you, Joshua.
Being walked into the room of the stormtroopers, which was how I got in there the last time I went.
Oh yeah, that's very true as well.
And I don't know if any of you ever saw the Star Trek thing at the Hilton in Vegas, but man, you were there. You were on the bridge of the Enterprise, and there wasn't all that stuff going on. It was you were there, and
you were there. It was interesting. The bridge felt very real.
Except it was Jean-Luc, not
Jean-Luc
James
Picard.
Every day, Disney is looking more and more like another victim of the Borg.
Hey, Fire of the Rising Moons was awesome, though. To hear that John Williams music actually play through that amazing Atmos system that they've implemented in that part of the park since day one was really, really cool. They just need more moments like that. Just give us what we want, Disney. That's all we ask for. If you're going to do a Star Wars Galaxy's Edge or a Star Wars Land, really do a Star Wars Land.
But if they did that, then they wouldn't be able to subvert your expectations.
But
again, that idea of a special place to see the fireworks from always existed before Fantasmic. As I've told many times, you used to go by and ask the guys at the Twain, what time is the fireworks tour? Mm-hmm. And they would tell you what time to be back there, and you'd get on and it would go around and it would stop in front of the Indian Village, which was that same basic location. And they would play the soundtrack from the fireworks through the speakers on the Twain, and you'd watch the fireworks. The only weird part was they never turned the Indians off. And the chant they were doing, once you were sitting there listening to it instead of just sailing by, sounded like they were saying, go away, go away, go away. And it was pretty funny. What's he saying?
He's trying to get a ride on the Millennium Falcon. Says his brother's there.
Wait a minute. Take a good look at that. Does it say wickedwood somewhere.com or something?
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
No website on the back.
Darn.
Maybe that's a good thing. Oh, boy. Well, speaking of mistakes that companies should try to walk back as quickly as possible, well, we have cars coming into Rivers of America. I don't know if you've heard about this project, guys. We have this amazing franchise, that being the Cars franchise, and it's going to be just placed right right in the middle of Magic Kingdom's Frontierland. Aren't you guys super excited about this? Aren't you guys, you're booking vacations right now, I'm sure, for the 2029 probably season.
Because
Can you
what I
excuse-
want to do when I step outside the Haunted Mansion in its wonderful Edwardian style is look across and see dirt racers.
Ka-chow.
I'm
I
sorry.
for it as a root canal.
Can I have an excuse for a second? I need to go take. Let's just call it a gummy. How about that?
Yeah.
Because this is here's something that I'm always trying to, as a themed entertainment philosopher. One of my things is that as a philosopher, you help people to think about subjects more clearly. And I'm really just struggling to try to figure out how to come up with the most succinct way of denouncing this whole entire project. And I think it's because, like we're living in a time right now where language has been so corrupted by society that that we have to have discussions on things like gender and the nature of reality with people. That it's just we've gotten to a point where it's just like, you mean to tell me that I need to justify a river system? That I need to justify that in 2024? I mean, it's so patently absurd on every single level. You have so, and if actually, even if you look at that, that is not a large footprint for an attraction. And keep in mind that would only be 1.5 attractions for it, because you have the whole entire destruction of the river, which is bad, and then what they're replacing it with is also bad. And those two are like, they're separate issues, but they're also combined. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it would lead to the destruction of Disney's most prime asset. You take out this river, it's really weird. It's like, to use our other subject that was going on. It's just like, this is the exhaust port for the entire Disney company. You shoot you shoot down the entire empire. It all starts to fall like dominoes, and that is not hyperbolic.
Well said.
No, I definitely agree. This is the heart of the Magic Kingdom right here, and one could only imagine what something like cars being implemented in this area might be like. I don't even think it really is described so adequately by this concept art right here. I think we need a little bit more visual aid. Ron?
Yeah.
So this right here?
So a friend of mine who was also a former Imagineer and now went from Disney to Universal to work on Epic as an artist, and they did these pictures. I took a whole bunch, and they're doing more photographs around the rivers of America currently, and I sent you the other one too of what it looks like now and what it will look like with the cars overlay. So you can see that the Haunted Mansion that's there now, I don't know if you can blow that up. Yeah. So you have the beautiful Haunted Mansion in the backdrop. You can see the whole thing. You can even see Rapunzel's tower over there under the flag. You've got the boat dock for the Liberty Bell. You've got Tom Sawyer's Island. I think that's Pearls or whatever eatery. I can't remember her name, but it's
Aunt
never
Polly.
open.
Aunt Polly.
Aunt Polly. Yeah, Polly. So it's gorgeous. It's a beautiful backdrop, and it blends with what's nice is that when you're in the other part of the park and then you come over to this part of the park, you kind of get this nice feeling of peace. Even though the park is busy, you can turn your head this direction and you can get away from the busyness of the park for a minute and just enjoy this peaceful, vista. Well, look now, compare what it's going to be like when cars are there, they're speeding by, they're making noise in front of the Haunted Mansion, and they're blocking most of it. And that's, and there it is.
Oh, but Ron, it's hardly attended and it's got no historical relevance at all. Yeah, someone actually said that. It was that dude over at one of those other Disney news outlets. His name is Tom. Forget. It's was it
What was it?
Oh
Corliss?
yes, yeah.
Uh-oh.
Shill list.
The Walt Disney World News Today, I think, is the outlet he's. Yeah,
And the thing
saw that
is,
on
it's
X.
very,
I was like,
it's
"Are you
very
kidding me?"
I mean, Walt wanted the history of the American frontier to be represented in his parks. It was originally at Disneyland. It was brought over to this park, Disney World. And I don't know if it's also in the other Disneylands across the world. I don't know what they do over there, but it's very relevant to our history because what did Walt want in the parks? He wanted the past, the future, and fantasy. And and what really bugged me when they made the announcement, not the initial announcement of the land, but the announcement that it was going to replace the Rivers of America, they're saying, well, we want to represent a new type of frontier. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? That's not what Frontierland's about.
So
the
then
only new frontier would be to make it like another space themed thing, because that's the only other frontier we're talking about. So you're gonna switch it, and you're gonna make Tomorrowland into Frontierland, and vice versa. I mean,
beyond that, though, we've now seen that video they put out of those like dirt buggies running around a track somewhere, which
you can do anywhere in the world.
Exactly. It's not unique.
And it's going to be rough. You're going to have problems with kids. You're going to have problems with grandma. You're going to have problems with people who are just over like 50 years old.
It's not going to be like Radiator Springs in Cars Land at DCA. Not at all. Which is what that picture looked like, because that's not the representation they've given us of what it's really going to be.
That's a fair point.
I mean, when they announced, well, we want to put a Cars kind of thing, and I thought, well, the only justification I can see is putting it behind Big Thunder, in the sense that Route 66 goes through the Southwest, you know?
And then it is away from everything else, where you're not contradicting anything else with that one. Granted, there are problems with that in and of itself, but that would be a great compromise, essentially.
Yeah.
And when they talked about, we have enough land to do 7 more lands or 7 more parks, they said various things, and I thought, but you don't want to use it, do you? Because that means putting infrastructure in. If you can rip out something, and of course, it doesn't increase the capacity, throughput, anything.
Right.
It only takes something out of circulation for 5, 6, 7 years. So,
and then when it's replaced, you're only going to get maybe like 200 or 300 more people per hour, and that's the people that you can actually. And that's just a theoretical capacity with that. That's not even what they'll actually be able to do. You will accomplish, in essence, nothing with this except for misery, and then you're also not going to be able to have the revenues for it. This is a disaster, even on financial grounds.
Oh,
I don't
disagree with you.
It just shows how fundamentally flawed the Disney parks are. You know, this might be a bit of a hot take to some, but it's like, you know, that thing some people do at their jobs, you know, when the big manager's going by and they're at their desk, they're just like, working. I'm absolutely working. I wasn't slacking off. That's
Nolan. There was a story the other day. Apparently, somebody's invented a thing called a mouse mover. It wiggles your mouse every so often. Yeah. And so all these people that are remote working, they put one of those on. They're not doing diddly at home, but every so often the mouse wiggles and it looks back at the home office like they're doing something.
Oh, the gamers know that's going AFK. That's what that is.
Yeah.
That's perfect. It just shows how fundamentally flawed the parks are, because if you don't ever expand, you lose half the reason people go on vacation. The other half, of course, is, you know, what's the big new tallest ride in the world, you know, yada, yada. We always want new things to experience, to make new memories with. But isn't the whole philosophy and point of a theme park is immersion? You're basically going to a world of gimmicks, but you need a reason to care about said gimmicks. And part of why you'll want to go to a lot of these historical things, heck, a museum. If you go to a museum at face value, what, you're going to go and look at a bunch of old bones or a bunch of old helmets or something? But then when you know the history behind it, it's just the fundamental structure of it. It's just so much more interesting. Anytime I've gone to a big location I remember from a childhood VHS tape or something like that, I always wanted to look as close to what I saw on TV as possible. And then once you make memories, odds are 5 years from now, you want to experience it again and see what it was like, how it was prior.
Or take your kids or your grandkids.
Yeah, exactly.
And
then when you
nowadays, you better have rich grandparents if you want to go to Disney World because,
Yeah.
And this really, I mean, like you want to look at it just from you can look at it also just from a demographic perspective, because there is a very large percentage of Walt Disney World visits and return visits that are being funded by the baby boomers, by late generation Xers. Those are the people that actually have all the money in our society right now. So, which you may or may not like that. We can have that discussion later. But those are the people that are funding most of the vacations. These are the people that actually own the Disney Vacation Club. It's not your 30-something person with one child. No, it's the grandparents. And you take out this particular area, and it's over for you. It is completely over for your business model, because this is this particular circle is one of the most valuable and most precious to them. So
yeah. They
For
paved
me, the biggest
paradise and
offense
put up a
was that
parking lot.
this is something that Walt, had a hand in. So, in terms of historical relevance, what about Walt?
Wait, who is this?
himself?
Who is this
Man.
Walt person you're talking about?
well, this is getting it at a point that I was itching to make, Lou. Is that like, look, okay, I'm sorry to contextualize this, but I'm a Disney historian. I've studied Walt Disney all of my life. I've read every single biography, and yes, the Neil Glaber one is the definitive one. Sorry, people, it is. Bob Thomas one's is not as high, but it also, like, I know that we bring up and we evoke his name all the time. But the people that you're advocating against this for have his name has no importance to them. The only way that you can get them is off of hopefully being able to look at the financials, being able to look at the illogic of this entire enterprise, so that you can understand. It's just like, look, okay, if you work on this project, anyone who works on this project will be vilified for life. You will have you're not going to be able to talk to people just saying, oh, what did you do for a living back in XYZ? It's just like, oh, I was part of the Cars thing. It's just like, okay, yeah, we're no longer friends. I'm not going to talk to you anymore.
Not invited to my birthday party either.
Your delusions when you join the company of future Tony Baxterdom are gone.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Vash, did they secure not the permit, but like the extension for that?
Well, let's go ahead and get into that just a little bit. So people will note that this project did hit a little bit of a snag, as illustrated right here by Blog Mickey, in that the state requested some pretty big changes, because this was going to affect really the ecology of this Central Florida area region, specifically on the waterfront right there. A long list was actually given out by the acronym is SWIFMUD, but it's the South Florida Water Management District. And they didn't give them much time to actually make these changes right here. Well, the state of Florida, that being SWIFMUD, gave them 10 days to fix the Rivers of America demolition permit application or face rejection. They requested a 60-day extension on this. Actually, it wasn't even Disney. It was the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District, or CFTOD, as we've come to refer to them here on that Park Place Network. And that's quite interesting, because I think a lot of people anticipated that CFTOD would be an inhibitor to economic development and growth at Walt Disney World. Turns out that's not the case. They were assisting and working with SWIFMUD in order to rectify these issues. Well, they were granted an extension for this whole project, and they requested 60 days, and they were only granted 10 days for this. So that's kind of the key right here. I'm sorry, not 10 days, 30 days.
30 days, okay.
Yeah.
Get my
Vash,
facts
if I can
here.
interrupt you for a second.
Please.
All of this, whether it's 10 days, 30 days, all the details,
Right.
is a result of a company that never asked anybody for permission for anything for so
Exactly.
long. It's literally, What do you mean we have to ask permission?
Yeah.
What do you mean we have to go through a regulatory board that isn't our captive? What do you mean we can't sell bonds to build a parking lot that only affects us? Whether we've done it for 50 years, why can't we?
Right.
And that's a learned behavior that it's going to take those people a long time to unlearn.
Correct.
And things like this are the wake-up call.
And,
Yeah. They didn't
one
know how
aspect
valuable
of
the
this,
soul was until now. Go ahead, Josh.
one aspect of this is that, I know that like WW Pro and a couple other people were hesitant about getting the state involved under environmental and economic concerns and everything. I was one of the people who tipped them off, by the way, about expanding this because I have some contacts in Tallahassee. I'm just like, hey, can you take a look at this, please? But is that they said was just like, well, we don't actually, this is not a way to control business. This is not a way to. We don't want to open the floodgates on this where we have governmental oversight on absolutely everything. Well, no, we're just saying that it's just like, look, if you want to build a e-ticket somewhere that has a land mass or something, you can do that. You just can't take out a whole river system that feeds into the Everglades.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is a massive change that you're actually requesting here, and it's a very very disastrous one ecologically. It might sound like it's a sneaky little thing to say. It's just like, oh yeah, we're going to get the environmental issue on this, but no, it's a legitimate concern. Otherwise, it wouldn't have gotten this far.
Well, that was the crazy thing about RCID in general, was because the RCID gave them carte blanche to basically do anything with this property. And like you astutely pointed out there, Joshua, this does run.
This is huge.
I mean, the Everglades are so unbelievably important to the ecology of Florida. It's wild that they were just giving carte blanche to do anything that they wanted with this territory, understanding that those basic principles about the ecology of Central Florida. Ron, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say a real quick note about SIFTA that's interesting to me as I drove into Epcot this morning, just passed by where the Marriott is. This is pretty far out from the Disney World sign. There is now a sign denoting that it is the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District. It's a green and white highway sign. RCID never had anything like that, and so this is a brand new. It's not replacing an RCID sign, and I thought, well, that's very cool, very interesting. SIFTOD is definitely marking their territory. So,
Yes, yeah.
I need to get a picture of it next time. Like I was so surprised, taken aback by it when I first saw it. I'm like, wow, this is cool. I'm glad that this is happening because RCID was supposed to build a city. That's why it was there. Oh, there it is. Yeah. That is, I think that might be the sign I saw. And it's very, very cool. But RCID never built the city that they were supposed to build. And yet they stayed in place for 50 years longer than they should have. They did build a lot of the infrastructure, which is great.
On the bright side, they didn't build the nuclear reactor either. So.
Joshua, I'm sure
Okay.
you're going to say something right now.
And I got nothing against nuclear reactors. I just don't trust those people to build it safely. That's all.
That's a fair point.
Anyway, guys, I gotta skedaddle, as I've mentioned over there. So I want to say goodnight to all of you. And everybody here has good stuff they'll tell you about when they leave. Me, I just sort of, amble in and amble out. And Vash and I will be on Sunday at 2:00, as we always are. But if I can call out, not slighting anybody else's site, I'm just a big fan of Joshua's wonderful, wonderful Epcot legacy site, and you should be too.
Absolutely. We'll go ahead.
Okay.
I'll put that in the chat right there.
See you Sunday, Vash, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Lou. Very much
Thank
appreciated.
you.
You were saying, Joshua.
Yeah. So first of all, with Lou's comment about the nuclear reactor thing, I remember that there was a story that was going around when they were constructing the Team Disney building, because it has that conical shaped sundial thing. I cannot pronounce the guy's name that designed the building, but it's very interesting. They actually thought, because of the shape, that they were finally building a nuclear reactor on site, but it was just the office building for Team Disney. But to Ron's point, when you're talking about, they stayed in business even long after the original purpose for their creation. Well, wasn't just for the city. The city was the justification for the oversweeping powers and everything. And I'm pretty sure that he knows this. I'm just saying this for the audience, so it's not anything for you, Ron. But they did that because there was nothing there. It was almost like going to an alien planet. I mean, it was like an M-class planet that they were going to. There was no infrastructure, no power, water, light, nothing in there. So they definitely needed a governmental body that was going to be able to control that. And then they did actually, by around like 1989, when it was clear that they weren't going to ever build the city thing. They were just like, yeah, we should probably just take this out. However, it was able to sustain itself for so long after that because the RCAD under Disney's watch was able to be such good stewards of the land, of everything that was being done to it. There was, like that whole entire controversy where they got involved with the United States government and everything, and everyone knows about that. The whole entire history about what happened with Ron DeSantis and all of the Disney interventions that they tried to do with the government. But nevertheless, and this I said right at the time, and there's a huge thread on Twitter with it, and just like, well, they haven't been good stewards of the land for the last 20 plus years, because if they were good stewards of the land, they wouldn't have approved 26 and growing 26 resort hotels while simultaneously removing a third of all of their theme parks. I mean, that's not, they would never, a truly independent governing body would never approve of such a thing. So they were already on borrowed time before that. They just kind of accelerated the process with their ridiculous political stances that they were taking under Bob Iger's watch. It wasn't necessarily Chapek. It was Iger that was controlling the strings the entire time with that, just as he did deny everyone Disneyland for a year and a half. For that, he was so generous enough to completely screw over all of the people in California and all of the cast members and everything. All roads, everything bad at Disney comes from Iger.
Or the destruction of much of the landscape and the environment for solar panels, when they could have very easily been implemented. In other ways. It's just I do agree with you, Joshua. And Ron, I agree with you that it overstayed its welcome, the RCID. The Reedy Creek district had been improved by that point, so why do we need the improvement district to do that?
I still can't believe they haven't put solar panels. I believe they did it in France, right? But they have not put solar panels over any of the parking lot areas at Walt Disney World.
I discovered why. Because if you put them, because I was profoundly frustrated by that too. I'm just like, this would be amazing, It's just like, because Florida's hot and everything, and just like it would have a dual purpose. You would be able to, create energy while you're also keeping the cars sheltered. However, with all of the events that they do, especially at Epcot and at certain areas of the Magic Kingdom, they couldn't use those for the marathons anymore. They couldn't use it for any special event because of all of the poles and the infrastructure in those places. So that's the reason why they would never put them over the parking lot, because it would interfere with all of their special events that they do around the property. But I would also say this too, because I've studied energy policies. Solar panels are definitely what's known as an unreliable. You can look up Alex Epstein, his amazing work on that. They are profoundly damaging to the environment. They can't be broken down after they've outlived their usefulness. They have to be constantly washed. It's a bad energy source. We need to get away from solar, but that's a different thing. So, but Alex Epstein, look at his work on that, and Bjorn Lomborg if you need a second opinion.
Well, thank you so much, Joshua. It is wild that. What's happened to Walt Disney World recently, and I guess what continues to happen now with Rivers of America project and so forth. I do agree with Lou's assessment. I mean, previously Disney didn't have to do any of this rigmarole when it came to the permitting process and all of that. They were their own permitting process or regulatory body that could just approve these things, and now they're having to go through these hoops right here, adding tens of thousands, perhaps even millions of dollars onto these projects in order to shore them up for approval. It's very, very interesting. Again, as Mamasaurus Rex, I believe, pointed out in the chat, they did get an extension, just half of what they wanted. So we'll see if they actually make that deadline and what happens to this
I hope
project
not.
going forward.
I hope they don't make it.
Well, here's something that's possibly a glimmer of hope here with
Please.
this, and this is something that I was thinking about. Okay, so we're worried about that. For one thing, with the 6 environmental studies that that the state is requesting from them, I did some independent research on that. Just for one of them, it takes 2 years. And they were giving them 3 months to look at it. The generous timetable on there, and we're screwing around with timetables and everything right now. But they gave them 3 months to do a 2-year study times 6. Number one. Ooh. Number two, these things do not exist in a vacuum. They're not going to look at this completely academically. You are dealing with governmental bodies that have human beings that are running them. There's going to be a human factor in that, and I have to believe that anybody who looks at this permit across their desk and they're looking at it, it's just like they're not going to look at, oh yes, we want to take out this canal, this artificial canal system, and we want to fill that in, and then we will also want to deforest this particular random area that we know nothing about. Yeah, let's go ahead and let's examine that. Let's make sure that we do our due diligence. I have to think that almost every single person who sees this across the desk is just like, wait a minute, they're going to do what to the Magic Kingdom? They're going to take out what?
Thank you. I got the same thing going through my head. Like, we cannot be the only.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look at that. You know what? I'm not going to say no right now, but I'm just going to need to think about this for a very, 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 very long time before I make an actual decision. I'm sorry about that. I just have to do that. Oh, by the way, we are scheduling our vacation soon to go to Disney World, aren't we? Okay, yeah, good. But yeah, we're going to have to take a long time to think about this rivers thing that you want to do. So
I'd be that one person that would find something to be like, oh, nope, sorry, can't do it. Just can't do it. Here's why.
Yes.
So way back.
A reg or something.
So Epcot itself, the actual park is about 300. It's like 300 meters or 300 something or another away from its original site, because they had to safeguard a particularly rare woodpecker that is right next to the site of Epcot. Epcot Center, when it was constructed, was the largest privately funded construction project on the planet. The one that was before that was Walt Disney World itself, and the one before that was the Hoover Dam. So so then you had so they actually have a road. If you go to the backstage access, that's off to the east side of the park, they actually have a windy road that is called Woodpecker Lane for that reason. They had to move this entire massive construction project for a woodpecker. Please find some sort of woodpecker at the Rivers of America. That's all you have to do.
Hopefully that woodpecker is found, and that's
I did not know
we can prevent this from actually occurring.
I did not know that's why that was called Woodpecker Lane. That's actually a really cool story, because of course I've driven on it many times. But yeah, that's wild. I didn't know that.
And for a brief moment, they had it for storage, because it's a closed off road. So most of the time you can't get onto it, but part of the time you can. They had parts of the Icon Wand at it, and then they had my beloved Lights of Winter from display that was shrink wrapped back there for a while. It's probably still back there, but still.
Probably.
Absolutely. Well, we'll have to see on this specific project what other stopgaps might occur, or something to please put the kibosh on this project, because it is very, very unpopular just amongst everybody. But hey, c'est la vie. There's another Walt Disney World story I want to go ahead and talk about. This one's a smaller one, but I kind of want to expand this conversation because I think it's really, really important. Joshua actually mentioned this really early on in the show right here, at least the aspect that I want to talk about specifically relating to this story. But Disney Plus now rolling out to Walt Disney World Resort Hotel TVs. Wow, after 5 years of the service actually debuting back in November of 2019, we're finally getting the inclusion of Disney Plus at Walt Disney World property right here via the resort hotels. Now, I will say, it's not going to be free. It's just giving you the ability to log into your Disney Plus account while actually staying at the Polynesian, for example, right? Which is crazy that it took 5 years to do something like this. And it's also wild that they're not giving you Disney Plus for free, or doing a promotional offer or something like that in order to incorporate, perhaps the Disney fan that would be looking for more Disney content to actually find a home on Disney Plus. Now, here's the thing I want to say about this. Okay, Joshua, is it true that they've been funneling all of basically the profits and revenues generated by the Parks Division, which, by the way, generates, Walt Disney World alone generates a third of the operating income for the entire Walt Disney Company? Is it true that they've been funneling all of this into Disney Plus at this time? That's why we can't have nice things like maybe a show at the Hyperion, for example, at Disney California Adventure, or the plethora of options and amenities that we used to enjoy at Walt Disney World Resort. Please, Joshua.
Yes, and it is going into Disney Plus, but it also isn't going into Bob's little shopaholic spree, where he decides to go ahead and buy half the planet for double the amount that it's worth. I'm a little bit grandstanding with that, but it's it's definitely going into the Fox acquisition. It's just like we can't have nice things at the park because Bob really, really wanted Fox, and he really, really wanted to overpay for Fox so that he could have his little swan song at his what is it, the 8th farewell tour that he does. He does more farewell tours than Cher did. So that is part of it. And really before that, even before that, they funneled almost all of the profits from Walt Disney World into every single other division. I hate to say this, and I don't want to make this an East Coast versus West Coast thing, but that wonderful World of Color display that you have over at California Adventure, and right now they're playing Season of Light, which I absolutely love the finale for that. That is a like Epcot level 2.0 thing. That's the only thing that I can say positive about California Adventure at all. I love their Christmas show. Amazing show. Just like makes me cry like 15 times the whole entire way through. It's awesome. But yeah, you have Walt Disney World to thank for that, California, because it was made on Walt Disney World's dime. Everything that happens in the studios comes from Walt Disney World. This is also one of the many reasons why I think the company should be split off, and Walt Disney World should retain most, if not all, of its profits, because you can't it's ridiculous that you're using good money to chase bad. I'm mixing the phrase up how it actually works, but really, they constantly are funneling money out of the parks and resorts to go ahead and funnel it into bad business ventures, like all of the super unpopular remakes and quote unquote live action remakes of Disney classics. I think that I just heard recently that they're going to be they've already greenlit Wish, the live action version.
What?
I'm faking it. That's not true. but
Tangled just got announced though.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking about when I was looking at it. I'm just like, okay, so wait a minute. How about we just go ahead and skip the middleman here, and we announce the animated show first, and then we say automatically, it's just like, oh yeah, we're going to do the animated film this year, and then 2 years from now, we're going to do the live action version right immediately after that, because this is actually part of the whole entire AI and the regeneration thing. This is part of what Justine Bateman was talking about just last night on the Film Threat stream, where they just continuously regenerate. They have no actual ideas anymore that they want to do, because any actual ideas is a risk. It incurs risk, but it's ironic because the more risk averse that you become, the more risky your business enterprise becomes as a result of that, because you're not creating anything new, which is a whole different thing. One of the things that I'd like to say though about this whole entire in-room television thing, it reminds me of something that what we said when because up until 2014 or 2013, all of Walt Disney World hotels, their entire inventory were being run off of a 1985 DOS-based program. A DOS-based program, look it up online, people, if you don't know what that is. It's the green screen. It's the Apple II type of thing that happened way back in the early 80s. They were running that all the way up until 2013, and then they decided to come up with a interface that was going to be a Windows one over there. And the funny thing that they said is just like, okay, Walt Disney World is taking a giant leap into the present. And this is what this sounds like to me with Disney Plus rolling out on the TV. It's just like, okay, you're taking a giant leap into the present. So
yeah, exactly.
Get with the program here. So I remember too. I was at one of the resorts a couple months ago for a couple days, and they wouldn't allow you to connect to their Chromecast, even though they had a Chromecast button on there. And it's just like, I'm like, so wait a minute, you're not even letting me put. And I tried to put on Disney Plus because we wanted to just watch a little something, and just like you could not put Disney. Let me get this straight. You have an Alexa app that is inside of here that's spying on us, and that's doing all this ridiculous stuff and everything. So you'll have that, but you will not allow me to stream out of my own account onto your television. Ridiculous.
It's so absolutely wild. But before I expand on that point, I know Ron has to get going right here, and I want to go ahead and make sure that we promote him before he leaves. At Follow the Bradleys Fun right here, Ron.
Hey,
where can people find you?
Well, they can find me right there and Follow the Bradleys Fun. I feel like Lou.
So. Sorry. I screwed that
No,
up.
yeah. Follow the Bradleys Fun on YouTube, X, Facebook, TikTok, whatever that is, Instagram. Just type in Follow the Bradleys Fun on any of those platforms, and you'll find us. There you go. That's it.
Fantastic.
You can listen to Broccoli Hill, which is a parody of Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Wow, that's funny.
Ron has sent me a whole bunch of great art when it comes to broccoli.
Show that, like, yeah. If they just did my idea and change all of Frontierland to Broccoli Land.
Let me see here. It's absolutely wild to see this.
I was
stuff.
messing around with AI. That was a Gemini. Google's.
That's a pretty good one.
Why does it look better?
Big Thunder is broccoli with broccoli on it, and then I made the Country Bears broccoli and the Riverboat broccoli.
That's
that basically is what Tiana's looks like now. It's Splash Mountain with broccoli on it.
This looks better than that. What are you talking about? This is much more visually pleasing than Tiana's stupid.
It's a good point. Well, I mean, it's still got the weenie on top, so
yeah.
There's the broccoli bears.
Why?
The Broccoli Bear Jamboree.
The Country Bears broccoli.
Yeah, there we go.
It is so. This stuff is wild. All right,
Broccoli
Ron,
Bell.
thank you.
Ron must be
so much
stopped this instant.
You're welcome, you guys. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ron. Thank you for joining the show. For sure. Some pretty amazing stuff right there. Definitely follow Ron at Follow the Bradleys Fun right there. So links in the chat. I'll say this about getting back to the modern, right? Or catching up to the modern day for Disney. I'm at a Marriott right now, and for the last 5-6 years, I've been able to, boot up the Marriott TV and log into my Netflix account or my YouTube account. Why on earth it took them 5 years to implement a product that they had spent hundreds of billions of dollars on, like Disney Plus, if you factor in stuff like the Fox acquisition and so forth? It is just absolutely wild to me, and it really kind of speaks to the company and just how behind the eight ball they are when it comes to stuff like this. It's really interesting because Disney likes to promote itself as a technology company. It's like, well, wait a minute, you haven't even implemented your own technology into your own resort. How on earth can you call yourself a technology company? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I know they've spent a huge amount of resources on these pet projects like the Walking Groot audio animatronic. Does anybody remember that whole thing that happened a couple of years ago?
Absolute waste.
Vague
I
memory of
cannot
that.
can't stand that. And those cute like little chicken droid things, those were
Yes.
cute. But I'm like, but how many millions of dollars did you spend on that? And how and shouldn't you have used that money in a more wise position? Because as I've said before, character experiences do not scale. The only way that the only people that are ever going to be able to experience something like that are maybe going to be like 100 people per hour, and then they're just going to go backstage again. And it's just like, okay, so how many millions of dollars have you wasted on this? Same thing with something like, like when we were talking about the interactive queues beforehand. You know that the interactive queue for a Haunted Mansion, you want to guess how much money it cost for that? It cost $40 million.
Ooh.
Whoa.
$40 million. By the way, that is the same. Yeah, and I know this because I had the people working on it. And one of my friends who's an Imagineering executive and everything, he was also working on another project for, let me just say, a resort right now. And well, yeah. So he said, just so that you know, the project that I have to convert this whole entire resort, that's the same exact amount. So so they had a whole resort at Walt Disney World that was converted for $40 million, and then they had this little interactive queue inside of the Haunted Mansion that also cost $40 million. So you have that in combination with every other one of the interactive queues that they implemented everywhere else, because they also had the thing that they put inside of like Winnie the Pooh, which they had to take most of that out of because it was, to shorthand, gross. It was really gross after a while because you're dealing with the little baby kids and everything else with it. So if you would add up all of those, then you would have probably had in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 $200 million e-ticket attractions that you could have put inside of every single park. I mean, these ridiculous little money wasting things. I'm like, yeah, it's cool, it's cute, it's cute. You can't do anything with it. I mean,
and they do the holotile floor recently that they just got an award for, I guess, and the little droids and so forth that they put in, and it's like this really isn't meaningfully adding to.
They're spinning their wheels. They're spinning their wheels. This is all spinning wheels. It's just like, so you really have no vision. You don't want to actually implement anything that you really should be doing. So you're just wasting money, and you're just basically keeping the people in R&D employed, which, by the way, Bruce Vaughn used to be in charge of before he was in charge of all of Imagineering, and that's the reason why they're so technologically based rather than experience based. He is just all about the tech. So he's just going to safeguard his R&D people while they're going through this stagnant time period.
Absolutely. I 100%
What is that
agree.
supposed to be in that picture?
That's Project
Yeti?
EXO. That's Project EXO. So the idea was to create larger-than-life characters for hopefully Parks Incorporation at some point, but utilizing new techniques of creating costumes so that you can bring larger characters to life via a manned
like
costume.
Sully for like a larger.
Yes, I think that
Costume
the
like
only
that, I
one that
guess.
we saw was the Hulk, if you remember that from Avengers Campus. It lasted like 2 weeks, I swear. I mean, I was here, I couldn't even see it because it was gone so fast. Let me see here if I can actually bring up a picture of. Well, it didn't
Was
break.
it not popular?
It wasn't very convincing. I'll put it that way.
Oh,
Let me see if I can
okay.
find some video for you, and yeah, you'll get the idea. But it was they highly touted this at the D23 Expo. That was the famous one where they had the what if scenario where they were talking about all these big projects that hopefully will come to the parks one day, but didn't actually materialize, or if they did, they didn't materialize in the way that were originally put out. Let me see here. This is the promotional video that they put out for this Project EXO Hulk suit. There you go, right there.
Oh,
that was a combination of their efforts.
Huh?
Did they
I'm
work on
so
a whole?
Yep.
I'm going to book right
costume?
now.
Jeez.
Did they work on a whole Hulk costume and then got cold feet at the last minute? They're like, "Sir, this isn't convincing. Put an outfit on him. No one will notice."
I don't know. I don't know, but this was their version of it. honestly, it wasn't even as convincing as like Megatron, for example, that you see at Universal Parks, which is really hilarious.
I would love to know how that costume works. Is it even a costume, or is it a robot somebody controls?
No,
from
it's a
somewhere else?
costume. This is a costume right here.
With digital hand
really wanna
extensions, and he's wearing stilts, and most of it's a foam core on there. So and it looks like for one thing, it's just like this is impractical because your kids are gonna go up to hug you, and then you're gonna have problems with that because you're probably gonna deal with deformation of the
Right.
foam that's going to be there. His hands, they can't actually fully collapse, so they're not going to be able to do autograph signatures. They're not going to be able to do any kind of meaningful gestures with it. This doesn't even work on an entertainment requirements perspective.
No. And Josh was 100% correct on all of this stuff. But they poured millions of R&D into stuff like this. And again,
He looks like Ant-Man,
2 weeks.
dude. Millions of dollars for a poor man's Ant-Man.
yes.
Poor man, Ant-Man.
It's very, very true.
Which is ironic because they actually have
Mhm.
been shrinking their imaginations for all this time. So that's what they've been using the Campbell article for.
that's I have issues with this account, but I think he nails it on the head right here. Everyone jumping on this tweet but he is 100% correct. A lot of these showboat pieces are stunts for investors to show Disney is a tech company. The tech does get cycled and used maybe eventually, but he is right. These were stunts, especially Groot, because we really never have seen the bulk of whatever they're pitching right here.
At
Even
what
though,
point are
please.
these these investors, I kind of feel bad for them, and I don't. They keep getting these teasers, oh, look what's coming down the pipeline, or look what we're working on, stuff like this, and it costs an arm and a leg, and
Mhm.
then nothing, or it's just a fail, and it's like, how much does this have to happen, rinse and repeat before these guys finally get a freaking clue that Disney is just broke, and then on top of that, they don't know how to manage their money, and then they're creatively just bankrupt.
Well, they've already
Part of me
actually
kind of
started that.
wishes. Oh, go ahead, Joshua.
They've actually started that because you can see that the stockholders have already become very much aware of what the game is that Bob Iger has been
Yeah, it's a
playing for a
game,
long while.
exactly.
So that's the reason why, if you notice, whenever they make any big announcements, see, before, like 2019, before, they would actually, the stock would always rise after that. Even
Mhm.
if it was a false promise on there. Well, now they're going to, now they're actually cluing into that. One of the things too that I'd like to say just a little bit about a soapbox on this is what people talk about today, because you talk about the myth of shareholder supremacy. So if I could share just one tab for that for just a second, I just want to show a little bit of a thing here. This is the great Simon Sinek, which is a business visionary, really. So let me go ahead, and if I could share the screen here just for a second here. There we go. Okay, cool. This is 2 minutes, but I do think it's well worth everyone's time for it. Okay, so let me see here.
Investing.
Can you hear this
This is
sound
gambling.
first? Can you hear the sound?
Yes.
Okay.
Cannot actually.
This is not investing.
Oh,
What
got
about-
it now.
This is
Okay.
gambling. This is investing.
I can't hear it.
We invest in our children. We invest in education. Right? We invest in something that we don't see the result in a year. Gambling is about hope. I hope this works out. It's about betting. I bet on your new product. I bet on your new CEO. I bet on your reorg. I bet on your acquisition. I invested in you because I hope that that decision that you just made today, I bet it's going to work. Oh. Costco was criticized by Wall Street year after year after year by stupidly prioritizing employees and customers and ignoring the shareholder. If you had invested $1 in General Electric and $1 in Costco the day Costco went public, which was December of 1985, you would have, compared to today, you would have enjoyed a 600% return on your investment in General Electric. You would have enjoyed a 600% return on your investment in the S&P 500. And you would have enjoyed a 1,200% return on your investment in Costco. That's investing. If you were lucky enough to get out of GE at the right time, you would have made a little more. But that's not investing, that's gambling. I got no issue with it. I got no issue with gambling, and I got no issue with taking bets. Just call it like it is. We're betting versus we're investing. So if we're saying we're doing something for our shareholders, we don't have shareholders anymore. We have share squatters, right? Think about it. Just let's think about this for 1 second. We're going to take counsel from a disinterested outside party that when we do well, they'll invest in us anyway. And if we do badly, they're not loyal and they're not going to stick with us.
Shareholders
Well
versus
said.
stakeholders, right?
I like that.
So
Wow.
yeah, that's one of the ones that I always constantly that instantly comes up whenever I say see shareholder. You owe nothing to those people. Those people are gamblers. They're not really your actual investors. They're not actually going to support you. But but Bob Iger seems to worship at the altar of whatever that is, which it actually goes to most of his downfall. It will eventually get to that point.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about some Bob Iger here because, Bob Iger, he's achieved so much. And so we really need to dedicate this segment right to him. Nolan, I know he's giving me the look right there. Well, I want to start off with this part of the story because I think this is really, really funny. This is via page 6 right here, but it's good, folks. Trust me. ABC News staffers working in near decrepit building with no Wi-Fi, no heat as GMA ratings tank. Very, very funny. Good Morning America has lost its heat figuratively and literally. The morning show has reportedly seen a significant dip in the ratings as Disney and ABC migrate from its former NYC headquarters to a new building downtown. We'll get to that point in just a moment. Some staffers, however, are still forced to work in chilly conditions, and it's at its HQ on the Upper West Side, where, quote, there's no Wi-Fi, no heat. The antenna ripped off the building over the weekend, and they're not going to replace it. One source griped. Another source told Page 6, quote, the heat is off. Yet another added, it smells like crap. Whoops.
Boy, do I know this story. You are singing my tunes to my life.
Well,
I'll explain in a second.
Okay. I want to hear from you, Erica, for sure. ABC has been in, quote, old and musty building, as one source has described it, since the 1980s. Parent company Disney acquired the news network in 1985. The studio sold the complex in 2018 for nearly $1 billion, but remained tenants while staffers prepared for a big, shiny move to Hudson Square. Allegedly, the new owners are tearing down the old digs. Sorry about that. And replacing them with high rises, which means they're, quote, no one's up for upkeep. A source previously told us. Erica, go ahead.
Oh my God.
It's too musty.
I ran a youth ministry for what? 6 years under the same identical conditions.
Really?
You're reading this and I'm just like, why does that sound so familiar? Oh. Except for the last year, they finally got Wi-Fi at the chapel, and that was it. But it was still, asbestos in our office. The ceiling was caving in. We had molds that had to be treated. Oh, and all they're getting now is a new roof. I'm like, have fun with that.
Exactly right. In 2023, we reported about an infestation of mice and a coterie of fleas at the building that forced employees to refrain from working on the 5th floor.
Do the mice have fleas on them?
Terrible. I would assume so. They've also experienced broken elevators and escalators in their final chapter at the complex. The building is falling apart. It's going to get condemned. It's been a slow burn, and they're not going to fix anything. It's getting torn down. Well, yes, they are building a new building over there downtown. And guess what they're calling
big Bob Iger building?
Are we calling it? Oh, there it is. There it is. Isn't it
Yes.
disgusting? Isn't it just absolutely devoid of any humanity? It's just
It's so
It's a
it's
split
so
building,
Can we get
emblematic.
any more? Can we get any more conceited with? You're talking about the Bob Iger building, right? They're naming it Bob Iger.
Yes, we're talking about
That
the
fancy
Bob
one.
Iger building right
Yeah.
here.
Compare this to the headquarters that I believe it was Michael Eisner greenlit. You know, that literally has the seven dwarfs holding up the company because they're the backbone of everything. And
It's a
then
gorgeous,
we get
gorgeous
Bob
building.
Iger's.
and
What's
his
that?
building is so ugly. His building is so ugly, and Michael's building is so beautiful. It's perfectly in sync with both of their personalities. It really is. It's just like, and his thing
Yeah,
is
it's
so
true.
soulless. I mean, like this one's a gorgeous architectural statement. Absolutely wonderful.
It is.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I just found this out a couple of years ago because you can see that this one's one of the ones from when it first opened, when it had this gorgeous reflecting pool on it. Now they've replaced the reflecting pool with a plaza, and then they also have the Disney Legends huge sculpture and everything else, and that's there. I didn't know the reason why they got rid of that pool. I thought they were just being cheap. Turns out that underneath that area they have a huge parking structure, and the reflection pool was leaking into it. So that's the reason why they got rid of the reflection pool and just made it a plaza.
I
But
always
still
thought they got
gorgeous.
rid of the pool to put a dirt track in there.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, friend of the channel, Captain John D, had his interpretation of the Bob Iger building right here. You can kind of see.
I just saw that.
Perfection.
I think the shower heads are great.
Well, you gotta have two shower heads, right? It's two showers.
We just
my
need a
God.
poster
I
on
have
there
not seen
advertising
this
the ride of a lifetime on a big sign, neon sign.
Oh, Captain, we gotta update this with Nolan's idea. It's perfect.
Oh, what's the idea
yes.
again? I missed it.
It's a big poster of Ride of a Lifetime, the book cover right there on the side, really advertising that this
You know
is.
what? You know one thing
the
that I
ride.
just thought about too about this one that's kind of interesting, and you were talking about the vaingloriousness of it all, which is perfectly Bob and everything. But well, the Team Disney building in Burbank, the actual headquarters of the entire empire, that one, it was named the Michael D. Eisner building after he left the company, in honor of him. When he left, Iger is still there. They only name buildings after people who have retired or died most of the time. They because they had the Roy O. Disney building at the Disney MGM Studios,
Right.
and then they renamed the animation building, the one with the Sorcerer's Hat. They renamed it to the Roy E. Disney building after he died. Same thing for the Frank Wells building, and Michael's the only one I think that was lit. Well, there's maybe like one or two other buildings that are named after people that are still living, but at least they're outside of the company, so it's an honor thing. This guy puts his name on this ridiculous thing when he is still in charge of the company. You could not be possibly more conceited.
It's so wild.
That's what I said. Yep. Yeah, that thought crossed my mind too. Isn't this something that's usually done after the fact, not while they're still there?
That's a fair point. I never really thought about it, Joshua, but you're right, and I guess Erica and I had the same thought process at some point in this juncture right here. It really does show how conceited he is. So I think this meme highlighting that I think is so appropriate, is so perfect right here, because it's just it really isn't the Walt Disney Company anymore. It really is the Robert Iger Company, and I think this is very emblematic of that whole thing right there. How
are you going to show the inside of it?
Feeding ego when you say that.
Are you going to show the inside pictures of it?
Do they have inside photos of
it?
Yeah,
there's several of them out there.
I did. I saw some of them. They had like pictures, like large.
There's one of them.
Oh.
Yeah, there's one of them. Look at how that
Yeah.
looks perfectly Disney to me. That looks so cozy. But they also have like they
Communicore
have
Hall.
these, yeah, they also have that huge. They have these huge canvases from. They have one of the library from Beauty and the Beast, the background art for that. And then they also
Yeah,
have
I
another
saw
one
that
for
one.
of all things Muppets. And somebody on Twitter was reporting about that. And like, this looks like like a 19th century trophy room for Bob Iger. These are all of his kills on the wall. Oh yeah, I killed this property, I killed that property, I killed this property too, and everything. It's just like, just put a rhino up there on the wall.
Mm.
The same thing, same thing.
That's crazy. I hadn't thought of that. Yep, not wrong.
I feel like
Uh,
Bob Iger is just like this close. Like he's already pretentious enough to be naming a building after himself. He needs to go full on NFL owner, and start being like Chrysler presents the Walt Disney Magic Kingdom area, or we have the Lincoln Century Haunted Mansion. It's tragic.
Well, I'm looking at these interior photos. You know what this really looks like? This looks like a Gensler architectural,
Yes, I was thinking the same thing. Very
right?
Gensler, very, very Gensler. Yeah.
Which we bring up Gensler because we know that they've had a very horrible influence on Walt Disney Imagineering. We have a lot of executives going either from Gensler or coming from Gensler and being incorporated into the fabric of Walt Disney Imagineering to horrible result. Unfortunately, a lot of what would have otherwise been very themed or designed spaces having this Gensler effect really take them down and modernize them. Let's say it really has been atrocious, especially when you look at like the Disney hotels, for example, that have had this effect put on them. This definitely looks like a Gensler project. Wow, this is really
And their color
really
scheme,
embodies the
their
modern Walt Disney
perfect
Company.
color scheme. It's just shades of beige and gray and brown,
Yep.
with a touch of blue occasionally with them. That's what somebody described it as me with. It's just like, oh yeah, have they made everything gray and tan with some blue? Yeah,
Sounds
that's
like
the thing.
most federal buildings.
Yeah.
You could literally
Here's blue.
scrub off the Walt Disney logo from that first picture there and replace it with like FedEx, and it would look like no different at all. There's
Right.
no Disney magic here. It's pathetic.
No,
Mm.
and it really does. Man, it really does create a
I
quite the
wonder.
contrast.
I wonder if this is the same building I was talking with Kiss My Grits about a couple of days ago, where they said that they don't have the square footage in the building enough to accommodate all the people that are going to be there. It might be this building, or it might be a different Disney owned building. I think it is this one though, where they have to come in and they have to book like it's a hotel. You have to book a desk every single day. And they don't have enough. They don't have a room for the staff, which means that either it was profoundly poor planning, or they're looking to lay off massive amounts of people because they know that they're not going to need a large building to begin with. So I think that
I'm
this
gonna go with
this,
the latter on that one.
yeah. So,
Absolutely terrible. I
but they're
hope that's
booking it
something
like a
you guys
hotel. Think about that. Every single day that you have to go in, it's just like, okay, let me make the reservation for my office. And you're not allowed to keep anything in there. It has to be just you, your laptop, maybe a pen and paper. That's it.
Yikes.
And these
Well,
are offices for Imagineers.
No, these are mostly for the media
TV?
companies. So
Yeah.
it's going to be like ABC, that sort of thing.
mhm.
Oh, okay.
I think they're linear networks and maybe some
Okay.
Fox media, all that. Also, too, maybe a spot for their advertising as well.
Yes.
Which they work out of New York for. So very, very interesting.
Okay.
I think we have a super chat coming in right here talking about this. Go and Shogi with the $5. If the Bob Iger building gets more exciting, a bank might break out. That's pretty good right there. Dance Life at the Kingdom with 199. Iger's going to need a bigger shower. That's right. That's where the two shower heads come from right there. Very appropriate. And Go and Choke with another $2. Life finds a way. Whoops, wrong park. Yeah, that's that was a reference to the Millennium Falcon with the weed growing out of it. Life does find a way, sometimes in very unusual places. Thank you so much for supporting the channel.
One fun fact about that, maybe not
Yes.
everybody knows. I mean, I think it's rather common, but just in case,
Mhm.
John Hammond, Michael Crichton specifically said he was the dark side of Walt Disney. He made the
Yeah.
dark side of Walt Disney. That was John Hammond's character exactly.
Well, I always thought that him getting the opening date of Disneyland wrong. Remember, he says 1956 famously when it's 1955, and
Then you're dealing with
guys-
pirates too in that same quote as well. It's just like, okay, when Pirates of the oh no, that was Jeff Goldblum's
Yes.
quip about that. Never mind, but yeah,
yes,
yeah. But even
yes.
true, it's just like nothing worked and everything. One of the little stories about that, I'll trip into Luland for just a second, then I'll come right back.
Please.
Is that when they were doing that, they were building the part during a plumber's strike. And so they said it's just like, okay, you can. So you had to choose between making water fountains or toilets.
Mhm.
And so Walt wisely decided we're probably going to need toilets, and that's the reason why they sold so much Coca-Cola and everything there. They thought he was being money grubbing about it, but it's just like, no, if you had a choice between a toilet or a water fountain, you're going to pick a toilet.
Well, Dick Nunis tells a story where Walt actually said, our guests can drink Coke and Pepsi, but they can't pee in the street.
Yes, yeah.
That's how he put it. So, but I love that one so much. Well, speaking of the parks and decision making when it comes to those, I'm sure you guys have heard the story. Chris Evans returning to Marvel, the MCU. This is interesting because this follows a long line of certain decisions of getting the MCU band back together again. Famously, Robert Downey Jr. coming back to the MCU, this time as Doctor Doom. We highly anticipate that he might not just be reprising a role for the MCU in which is disconnected solely from this character of Iron Man or Tony Stark. We do think that he'll be incorporated somehow with that character back into the MCU's fold right there. Also to the Russo brothers coming back famously. They being the ones introducing Robert Downey Jr. on stage there at Comic-Con recently. Stephen McFeely, one of the writers associated with a lot of the Avengers productions, also coming back. And now we have Chris Evans coming back. Now this is interesting because we learned with Robert Downey Jr.'s return that he was going to be incorporated not just into the Iron Man Stark Flight Lab, I think is what it's called, this attraction coming to Avengers Campus at Disney California Adventure, but also to the Infinity Defense or Marvel e-ticket attraction at Disney California Adventure. The suspicion with Chris Evans coming back is they may have retained him for not just movie rights for future Marvel productions, that being Secret Wars and Doomsday, but also to maybe he might be incorporated into Infinity Defense and possibly other Avengers-based attractions all over the world. I think this is a really interesting story because they have spent so much money, $400 million on Captain America Brave New World, trying to get Anthony Mackie as the new Captain America, and announcing this 2 months before that movie actually comes out, I believe, if I'm getting my dates correct here, right? I think it really does speak to the confidence that the company might actually have in an Anthony Mackie-led Captain America film, and also to where they think Marvel is right now. Joshua, you talked about how Marvel, it's kind of a rough fit for Disney, right? And incorporating those stories into the parks, I don't think has been done to the degree that I think people might have expected, in terms of a successful level or in terms of a quality level. And now we get something like this right before the debut of Avengers Campus's expansion in Disney California Adventure. What's your guys' take on all of this?
It's desperate. They have no imagination. They have no actual story, so they have to rely on these poor actors that they've finagled into doing this again. I mean, these people are getting older. They don't want. I'm pretty sure that they don't want to do it. I feel sorry for Chris Evans. I feel sorry for Robert Downey Jr. that they're having to redo this again. It's just like these were people that were supposed to have careers and be able to play all sorts of roles, but no, they're getting constantly coerced into doing these things again because they're so creatively bankrupt, especially even at Marvel. The whole entire superhero trend is over, and but the problem with it is though is it's like, okay, so for years I was telling people that this was all going to end, that the whole entire superhero genre was going to collapse, and people thought that that was ridiculous for me to say. I'm just like, well, look at this. Okay, you do realize that in the 1950s, westerns were comprised of over 50% of the output of Hollywood, and that is definitely not the case today, and it wasn't the case 10 years after that was the fact. These all genres die. Now the problem with Marvel is that Marvel can only do superhero films. They're not going to do a rom-com. They're not going to do a straight up drama where they have no powers or anything else of that nature. So they have to go back to these classic characters for them to have any sort of relevance to where people are actually going to watch these films. In case you couldn't tell, I have no affinity for any of this stuff with them. But still, you look at something like I just recently watched Deadpool and Wolverine. I was kind of coerced into watching it, but nevertheless, I'm just like, and it was silly and it was very violent. But I'm just like, so. But I look at it just from a forensic analysis, and I'm just like, well, the only way that you can actually do this anymore is if you make fun of it. So they're going to go ahead and they're going to do the only way that you can do this with these two guys there, especially one that was so synonymous with playing Iron Man, and now he's going to be Dr. Von Doom. I mean, you're going to have to do that tongue in cheek. You're going to have to do this with fourth wall breaks. It's just like, okay, we don't have to take any of this stuff seriously. We don't have to do that. And it reminded me too of, one of the things that I actually did enjoy in a Marvel movie was that one scene that they have in Thor Ragnarok, where they strip him down naked and they do this whole entire thing on Mount Olympus or whatever it was. And I look at that and I thought, and everyone online absolutely hated it. They hated the fourth wall break. They hated the silliness of it all. And I absolutely thought that it was hysterical. But I would think that it's hysterical because they don't have any investment in this property. Well, I predict that what's going to happen with anything that they go forward with this is that because they're going to have to do nothing but fourth wall breaks, and the suspension of disbelief is going to be totally collapsed on this, that it's not even going to please the audience that they're trying to continuously cultivate. That's where I see that this is going with this. So.
Yeah, it's like they're forcing something to be in and forcing it to be like relevant, and I don't know, I feel like they're beating a dead horse. I could never get into the comic thing, mainly because it just got so convoluted, and it's just not cohesive. I can't follow it. It's so confusing, and
you have to
I'm
watch every
confused
single
with this
thing
whole
without being
Captain
able.
America thing. I'm like, yeah, I'm completely lost on the Captain America thing. There's a white old man version with Harrison Ford, and then there's the young black dude version, and apparently there's two different studios. And I'm just sitting here like, it's like the Spider-Man thing, and I just cannot get into it. It's just
Well, and
I
here's a big thing. Sorry, Leola, but just one point about this is that I think that one of the reasons why people like Erica and people like me don't do this, because inherently when you're dealing with drama, you have to be able to identify with some sort of characteristic or some sort of situation that you're dealing with within the world, within the genre and everything. When you're looking at this, when you look at like the sparse output of superhero films, you look at the original Superman, you look at Batman, you can identify with certain parts of the superhuman people. You can identify with Clark and losing his dad, and all of and these are dealing with human level events. But when you get to this level of absurdity, and I checked out of this whole entire franchise when they started throwing cities at each other at Avengers 2. Like, okay, I'm out, because there's no this is beyond reality. I can't attach anything to it. There's nothing to attach to these superheroes anymore. There's nothing where I actually feel like you're an actual human being. You're just you're a plaything. You're a little action figure that's walking around and saying funny things but doing incredible stuff. I think that's probably part of the problem. They're not able to relate to people on a human level.
Well, yeah, I think I do think some of these stories, I think people found relatability in. Let's say, for example, right? I think Steve Rogers' story, especially if you want to go back to like Captain America 1, that is, the first Avenger. I think that was a story that could resonate with a large audience. It got a little comic booky there, especially at the end, but I think it was actually handled fairly well. But like you said, Joshua, when it goes off the rails, now you lose people's interest almost entirely, and maybe that was what happened with Captain America's story, even in that regard. Nolan, you were going to say something. I do apologize.
Oh, it's all good. I feel like aside from Vash here, I probably one of the few that actually likes the MCU here, or did at a time. And I just want to say, as someone who really got behind it, was in theater experiences where the crowds were cheering. We saw No Way Home, and the crowd literally erupted in cheers like 5 times during that movie. And that was only a few years ago. The films really hit an element, I think, that worked for a lot of people, and not putting down anyone else's opinion here, like to each their own. There's a lot of things I don't connect with. But if I could really condense the problem I feel that happened to Marvel, I believe they poisoned their own well, because they took the easy way out. When you're doing, sequel upon sequel, a lot of people will routinely, if they have issues with Marvel and stuff like Vash, you were just talking about there with Captain America, the first Avenger. When the films start out, they really have to do a lot of work to sell the audience on these characters. Especially, that's what was so groundbreaking about like the first Iron Man movie, or the first Captain America movie. And I'm sure I'm going to make some comic nerds mad. I say that lovingly when I say this. Captain America and Iron Man were B-tier heroes next to Superman and Batman.
Correct.
They weren't the characters all the kids wanted to be at the playground. Yeah. They changed everything with those first few movies, because these were characters you could connect with. They took their stories serious enough. Everything was so brooding. Tony Stark had a lighthearted feel to him. There was jokes, but there was still a sense of the stakes mattered. It was almost like playing a sport. There's certain rules that you have to abide by in this universe, and there's still going to be a payoff by the end of it. They took the easy way out when they leaned too heavily into, in my opinion, humor. Because when you have a serious movie franchise, it can be a bit of a gamble at the time, to try to do a more satirical take on a sequel. We saw that with Thor Ragnarok after the first 2 movies were grounded more in, about as reality as you can get with superhero movies. Now I feel like with a lot of these movies, they're taking it so easy. It's like, we don't even have to try anymore, to have a sense of realism, a way to grip these plots together. Because now it's all, oh, hey, look at us in, I'm going to use a good movie, for example, here, Wolverine and Deadpool, where we're making fun of ourselves. Or say Spider-Man No Way Home, where basically stakes don't matter anymore because you can just undo everything like that. You have to be very careful when you start playing ball with these kinds of topics and stuff. I know there's a lot of times in the past where we make fun of certain franchises, comics, movies, whatever have you, where, by the 7th sequel, they was taking itself way too seriously and the plot was all crazy. But usually, if they kept a sense of respect to its lore, kind of like Star Trek did, where even when it went down in quality, there was still an array of Star Trek fans who were going to vouch for that lore because it connect. And when you got those little moments where the show got good again, everything was so tightly knit that you could appreciate everything as a whole. When you just make it to where the rules don't matter anymore, not only do you lose, you've already lost, your more casual observers like, say, Erica or Joshua, who never really got into it. But you lose those tried and true fans that got behind everything. And it basically becomes, to take a very trivial type analogy, it's like if you go to the park and you're playing a game with your friends, and all of a sudden the one kid keeps changing all the rules all of a sudden. The point of the game is lost, and the whole thing dies as a parody, and you have to start questioning whether this stuff was any good to begin with, because all you've done for the past few sequels is making fun of everything that started and built upon it, in my opinion.
It's like, hey, if you're not going to take yourself seriously, why should we take you seriously, kind of thing. I think that was really endemic of that. You talk about relevancy and setting up these franchises, setting up these characters, and you have to do it, correctly, or else people really don't care. I think this is very emblematic of that, or representative of that, I should say. You can see right here, this is the line for Captain Marvel, or I'm sorry, not Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel.
Ms. Marvel.
Do apologize. Miss Marvel right here. This is the line for at Avengers Campus. I was just there actually yesterday. Well, 2 days ago now. And you can see right there, we got a family waiting for her. As opposed to Captain America, Steve Rogers, you can see how that line is just a little bit different. And again, it's like if you are into the Marvel superhero thing, you are definitely going to go with characters who were, lovingly set up by, I think, people who were fans of the franchise, fans of the characters themselves, wanted to see them embodying these in these films and so forth. And well, you can see the difference, right? Versus somebody who, was put on Disney Plus and maybe not set up or maybe featured, a character that maybe people weren't interested in to begin with. Go ahead, Noel.
Every day, I feel more and more like Erica and Joshua here when it comes to the MCU, because when they started making it to where the TV shows were like critical plot lines for the movie, as opposed to, oh, if you read that one side comic book or whatever, you're gonna have a lot of fun with this because it makes more sense. Now it's like, oh no, now it's required meeting. It's like you're going to a dance recital, like it's required. Like, I just wanted to come here to have fun. I didn't want to study.
Yeah, well, one of the things that happens with that is that, for decades in Hollywood, even when they had sequels, which was kind of a rarity, and even in Star Trek, the overarching principle that everyone was laser focused on is, does this work in isolation? If does this property work? If people need a backstory of X, Y, or Z on this, then it doesn't work, because it needs to be a cohesive whole, a cohesive television show, a cohesive film, whatever it is by itself. A couple of the topics that you brought up, Nolan, I thought that was rather interesting there, is that you talked about the humor aspect. When you're dealing with, especially this particular genre, you have to be very judicious when you're dealing with humor, and it really goes to things like, okay, look, we've had a conversation for several hours here. We've had a couple of jokes here and there, but if it was always, like if I was making nothing but snide remarks, or and Lou was doing his long setup jokes or whatever it is, and it was the ratio of the conversation went to that, then you would see you would see the viewership rapidly decline on this stream, because you're not maintaining the cohesiveness of the whole, and you're not actually bringing an actual intellectual debate or whatever it is that we're doing here. Same thing with the films, is that you have to have that sort of balance. It can't be jokey all the time. I mean, like when you're dealing with events that are supposed to be, like world changing, the planet's going to die, blah 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 blah, whatever it is, and it was just like, you can't throw in a joke every 5 seconds about it. Right. You can't put in a fourth wall break whenever you want to, because if you're not going to take yourself seriously, I'm not going to take you seriously. And one thing, I'm sorry, I just need to point this out with it. I'm okay with people loving the thing that they want to love. I'm totally for that. Not everything is their thing. My particular venom that I spew towards Marvel is because I am for lack of a better term, Scorsese stan, where I'm very much on his side about that. My problem is not with Marvel. My problem is that Marvel sucked up all the energy out of Hollywood, and that there's nothing for everybody else. because everyone else paved the way for that studio to run things, and they screwed up the DCU and everything else that they did because they were trying to capture this dragon. So that's my problem with it. If you love Marvel, that's fine. That's good for you. Wonderful. I support that. My problem with it is that now I don't have anything to watch.
Well, we got a super chat here from Jonas J. Campbell himself. $5. What are your thoughts, Joshua, on Avengers Campus?
This is not nice, Jonas. I love you. You know that. that is, you're sending me red meat, and but yeah, it's awful. It's you know, the whole entire Lindsay Ellis, thanks, I hate it meme comes up. But yeah, it's a cold, sterile environment. It only relies solely on character interactions. It's another one where they have a lot of technology that's associated with it, which means that it becomes a one-trick pony. It's not something that's truly immersive. I mean, I look at like some of the buildings on there, and it looks like, you know, like, okay, like they have that one building that has that square that all of the architectural critics hate, that's on every single fast food place and everything. One building looks like it's a Target. I think it's the one that is for Spider-Man. And people say that the Web Slingers attraction sucks, and they would just much rather do something like Toy Story Midway Mania. There's nothing that's redeeming about this at all with it. I mean, it's just a gritty, you know, urban environment. I have difficulty seeing the difference between this and the landing, or excuse me, the west side of Disney Springs. I mean, it looks kind of the same as
Call
this.
it what it is. We're Disney purists. It's not Disney.
Yeah, it's not Disney, and really, you know, it's just like which Disney transcends its brand. I repeat this constantly. It's from my friend and vicarious mentor, Tom K. Morris. It says Disney is entertainment that reaffirms the best qualities of life and the human condition. It is not about brands. It is not about characters. It's a lens with which we view the world, and it's a wonderful lens, and it's the reason why people have gone to theme parks for generations. And this is a corruption of that, because this is just a gritty urban environment that no one really wants to spend $150 to go inside and experience.
And the symbol of all that is that ugly, atrocious Tower of Terror re-theme in the background, because that doesn't even look like it belongs in the superhero stuff.
No, yeah, it clashes.
It's gross, and the fact that they made Joe Rohde become the creative designer of that was disgusting. I mean, like, I'm pretty sure that led towards his decision to leave the company, because it's just like, look, if you're just going to put me in as a corporate mouthpiece, because he has enormous social capital, Joe Rohde does, based off of everything that he does with Animal Kingdom and Aulani, and even before that, he was actually the person who created the Adventurers Club for Pleasure Island. And before he did all of these other things that were dealing with indigenous cultures, his training wheels for that was the Norway Pavilion and working on Maelstrom. And he also created all the color schemes for all of the future world buildings. He has a long lineage and everything. And then they take his wonderful lineage and they put him on camera, and they force him to say, "Oh no, this is a wonderful attraction. We're doing amazing things over here." It's ridiculous. I mean, I don't know which one I'm more pissed off with: the fact that they forced Joe Rohde to make a mouthpiece of this, or the fact that it exists by itself.
Well, I mean, that's it's quite the super chat answer right there. Thank you so much, Joshua. Now I have to ask you to do it again.
Jonas knows how to push my buttons. That's the thing.
Well, now he's asking, what are your thoughts on Marvel Superhero Island at Islands of Adventure at Universal Studios, Florida?
Oh well, I don't like that either, and really, I think that it's because one of the things that really annoyed me about it when I was there last year, or maybe early this year. Anyway, it all blends together. Their BGM is horrible. I mean, it's a constant guitar riff that goes on endlessly. And I'm just like, I can't stand to be here for longer than 5 seconds. Let's run out of this island as much as possible with this. I mean, but it is the most pure example of what you would envision for a comic book island with it. But I mean, it's filled with artifice and yeah, just yuck. So, but I will say one thing that is kind of interesting about it is that the Spider-Man ride, just to go again in Lou's Land, the Spider-Man ride was the original plan for Baby Herman's buggy ride for Roger Rabbit's Hollywood at the Disney MGM Studios.
Really? That was the ride system?
That is the exact ride. So it was created by Disney. It was a created by Disney ride system. And if you notice that the actual vehicles, they kind of look like little baby buggies. It's just because it's the same exact shape, because it was supposed to be Baby Herman's buggy ride.
Let me go ahead and bring this up, because if you haven't seen the concept art for this,
see this.
It's very, very cool. It's just an excellent idea. Let me see. Well, this is not quite that ride, but you can kind of see the concept art they had for multiple Roger Rabbit based attractions for MGM Studios at the time. The idea was like the baby buggy ride was kind of interesting because weren't you supposed to wear bonnets the entire time?
I think it was something like that, and it was based off of the hospital thing when they had the the tummy trouble short that was before Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. That one was what that one was based off of. So that was going to be interesting. That, you know, for a little while too, I got to see like almost all the concept art for it when I was working at the studio, and I never got a chance to get attached to it. Oh, there's some of it right there. So that's part of the storyboards for Baby Herman's buggy ride there. So
wow, I've always heard about this. I'd never made that connection. That's super fascinating. Okay, well, there you go. Thank you so much, Jonas, for the $7 collectively right there. Very much appreciated. And we got to learn a little bit more about Joshua Hara's unique thoughts when it comes to superhero concepts within Disney parks. Very, very fascinating. Let me go ahead and just go ahead and promote our panelists right here. They have done a tremendous job assisting with today's production right now, so I would be remiss if I didn't actually promote them as well. I'll go ahead and start out with Erica. Erica, where can the people find you?
You can find me right there, hanging with Erica and Raph. And I just loaded a video tonight just before the stream started. Finally got that Phantasialand Christmas celebration video up, which is a German theme park that we went to. It is rather lengthy, just a heads up. We took a lot of really good footage, and I tried to shorten it. I'm not what you call professional at editing, so I did the best that I could. It's a good 40-minute video. So
very cool. Well, hey, you can see it on the channel right over there. I'm sure, Erica, it sounded like you worked really hard on that one. Let's go ahead.
Oh, I did. It took me a couple of weeks, but I have new equipment too, so I was tweaking some things. Got the audio under control. It's better now than it was, and I have another video I've finished last night, but I'm going to wait a couple of days before I put that one out. And we went to a Christmas market right in our backyard. Not far from here.
Well, there you go. Let's go ahead and support Erica from Erica and Raph right there by subscribing to Hanging with Erica and Raph. The link is going to go ahead and be in the chat right there. Go ahead and go over there, watch the video, subscribe, help a gal out right here. Yes, I believe that's about this time right here to hear some thunder. Nolan Thunder, is that right? Nolan,
yes.
What do you got going on?
All right, so I actually put out a video the other day, my second trailer for my upcoming episode of Lost in the Files, my little documentary series on video game urban legends and all sorts of different kinds of internet and media mysteries out there. Let's just say it's been a week. I was doing some filming here the other night, and I got a lot more filming ahead of me this weekend. This project has been very ambitious. It's probably been the most ambitious project I've had in probably about 2 years. There's going to be, let's just say I've already got the fireworks ready, and I do mean that in a literal sense. So if you like a mix of documentary, B-movie horror, and learning about some of the urban legends and such of the past, please check out my series Lost in the Files. It's a lot of fun to do, and let's just say it's got a bright future ahead of it.
Well, that is absolutely fantastic. I am so excited to see what you got going on over here at No One Thunder. If you haven't yet subscribed yet to No One Thunder, please go ahead and do so. The link is in the chat right there. And of course, last but very much not least, we have Joshua Harris with his incredible Epcot Legacy website, and also too the EA2 locals right here. I'll go ahead and put that in the chat as well. Joshua, what do you got going on over there on?
Well, I've got a couple of really. Sorry, I've got a lot of really exciting projects and everything. One of them that I'm releasing probably within the next hour is going to be. Let me see here now. I have finally finished this. It took me a month long to actually do this. So I'm releasing a product line that is based off of the Cinderella Castle Dreamlights that everyone used to see and love and everything. This is a graphic that will be on T-shirts and blankets and as a canvas print, everything. So that one, I actually had to place by hand over 35,600 lights on there, and redid my whole entire model of Cinderella Castle on there as well. So that one's one thing that's going to be premiering right now in my Centurium shop, which is part of E82 that will be on the Centurium in just a little while from now. I also have a couple more holiday programs that I'm going to be doing. I know that earlier I did a full HD conversion of the Disney Halloween from 1983. I'm doing a similar project from that for Christmas. I hope to have it up in the next week or so. That's going to be full HD recreation of one of the classic Disney clip shows that they did in the early 80s for that as well. There's several things underneath the music tab there where you have, I moved all of my holiday albums up to the top. If you scroll up to the top, it's the music thing. Where I have my 3 Christmas albums that's on there, the ever so popular Christmas in Progress City, and the Epcot Holidays Around the World, which has some fresh restorations on there, and a Future World high concept album. But also, there's 69 hours worth of material on there, and there's video and stuff. Lots of project going on. So that's it. So
69 hours. Nice. No, sorry, I had to do that, Joshua. Sorry, to apologize. And also to make sure if you haven't yet checked them out on locals, please, go ahead and do so right there. I know he's putting out a lot of exclusive content on there as well. So both those links are going to be in the chat right next to the video you're actually watching right now. So please go ahead.
I've got something. You just remind me. I'm putting up an exclusive for them later tonight. About a 2-hour exclusive for them.
Nice. There you go. Go ahead and subscribe to those locals. Visit the page. And also to support Nolan Thunder, support Fall Out Bradley's Fun, support Erica and Raph, support LW Ghost as he goes on Genre Guys, and I'll be back up with Lou and you this Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern, as he was saying before right there. Hopefully we covered everybody. Thank you so much for joining in the chat. By the way, very much appreciate that. If you haven't yet subscribed yet to That Pod, please go ahead and make sure you subscribe. Like this video. If you did like this video, share us out, as it helps us out tremendously with the YouTube algorithm. You're going to be redirected over to Toontown TV right now. So let's go ahead and get you over there. Thank you so much, guys. We will see you all later.